Podcast City Network.
Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to The Everett Lee Show.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to The Everett Lee Show podcast. I am The Everett Lee. Quick shout out to everyone that follows me on social media. And, of course, I want to thank Podcast City Network, the official host of The Everett Lee Show podcast. Tonight, I have right now, she's laughing at me when I'm putting on the shades and getting ready to knock out this podcast. The last time I've talked with my guest that's on tonight was on Deathmatch Wrestle podcast with David C. Russell on episode 261 on his. You can head over to Podcasting Network YouTube channel and check out that episode where you can catch myself co-hosting with David C. Russell and my guest tonight. I want to welcome on to the Everett Lee Show none other than commentator, ring announcer, Risa Pappas.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to be here again. Good to hang out with you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a while, man, since we last talked. I was telling you about that right before we went live. I said, it's been a while, and you're like, I don't even remember when the last time it was.
I don't, but I also have, no concept of the passage of time. I'm very confused by it. It's too, I don't know. I feel like I'm the kind of person where, the O.J. Simpson trial was, 10 years ago to me. Forever. I'm never going to not think that was, 10, 15 years ago. I'm very bad with time.
Yeah. I get bad at times right there, man. Sometimes I forget what the hell is going on half the time. I have to ask or remind people what the hell's going on because I lose track of things. And people remind me, they say, yeah, you remember this happened or that happened? And I said to myself, no. And then, oh, yeah, I remember when that shit happened.
Yeah, it's not just wrestlers who get, hit in the head and forget things. Us regular people can be forgetful too.
Yeah, you definitely can. It's easy to lose track of things and stuff, and it's always good to remind it. Sometimes it's good to be reminded about things. Sometimes it's not because you're like, I don't even want to remember that. You ever have those moments?
Oh God, of course. People sometimes people pop up on my timeline, or they'll be like, "Hey, do you remember me from blah 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 time?" And I'm like, maybe, or maybe I do, but maybe I don't want to.
Speaking of timeline, I was browsing through trying to book guests for a month in advance. I like booking guests in advance, and so I know what's lined up. I don't want to be that podcaster. It's 2 days before, it's hey man, you want to come on my show, or get out there on social media. It's I need a guest. You don't want to be the scrambler. No, I don't want to be the scrambler. I like planning ahead because everything goes so much better that way because I line all my ducks up in a row and I just execute it. And one of the things is I was surfing through the news feed. I'm looking at stuff, and then I came upon a post that you put talking about you were pissed off at a podcast, talking about on the post, if I can remember off the top of my head, saying, hey, it's if you're going to book a guest, make sure you show up. What was that about, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, I don't know. I don't honestly remember. There's been a couple people who have said, oh yeah, we totally should. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then nothing happens. And then 2 months go by and then another person will be like, hey, we should. And I'm like, okay. And then nothing. Or people will invite me to their podcast and I'm like, but do you want me to be on it? Because if you don't want me to be on it, what's my incentive to like your podcast?
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you free advertising and like your podcast if you're not going to have me on your show.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? And so I took it upon myself. I'm like, hey, what's up? Want to be on my podcast? And I didn't hear nothing. I was like, damn, she's pissed. And then you finally got back to me and you said, hey, I don't know how this got lost in all the DMs that I get. And I said, I was like, yeah, that happens to me, man. That happens. That's happened with a couple guests. I've reached out to a couple guests before in the past, and I've hit them up DM and say, hey, you want to come on the show? Didn't hear nothing. About a month goes by. Oh, hey, I just saw this in all my DMs. Yeah, I'd like to come on. What time and date? And so when you told me that, I just started laughing. I was like, you get a lot of DMs, don't you?
Yeah. It's been there's been like a rash of them lately because people friend request me, and that's fine because I assume that it's fans of wrestling or people who are into independence or have seen me or whatever. But I've been getting a lot of requests from people who I'm like, oh, you're not even from the U.S. Like, you have no idea who I am. So they're just like, I think that there's people out there who are just trying to like be Facebook friends with as many people as possible. So I have I got a bunch of those, and they'll just like immediately message me and be like, hi, how are you? You're so beautiful. Like, I'm just like, man.
That's creepy, man.
So they're just like, every time I accept friend requests, immediately it's like boom, 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 like people hitting me up and just being like, hi. Which, like, public service announcement, like, if you ever want to talk to a girl, like, don't just be like, hi, or don't just like wave. The wave thing is weird to me. Like, I don't know, like that. There's certain stuff like that Facebook has that I'm like, it's kind of weird that they have it, like waving and poking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's so super awkward. So I don't know, when people, and the unfortunate thing is, like, if I respond, a lot of the times it gets really weird or negative really quickly. Like, if I'm like, hey, how are you, or whatever, it sometimes immediately goes to like a gross sexual place, which I'm like, all right, and I got to back away from that. Or it'll eventually get to a point where they're like, we should go on a date. I'm like, no. And then it just becomes like, F you, you spoiled, ugly, fat, gross. And I'm just like, dude, like, come on. So it's like, unfortunately, a few people have like ruined it for the rest of them. So people, as soon as I become friends with somebody, if they immediately message me, I'm just not going to answer.
Right.
Because I can't handle. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with things getting like immediately awkward or sexually gross or super derogatory.
Right.
Like, I have zero incentive anymore to open these DMs from people, but they're just constantly. Which, I mean, I guess that's good problems, but also at the same time, it can be a little exhausting.
Yeah, I can imagine. You get those creeps that get a hold of you, and they DM you, and then all of a sudden you see a picture up in your DM of their junk. Have you ever gotten those? I hate to ask, man. Have you ever gotten any someone's junk pics?
No. Somebody sent me a voice message today, and I was like, it was like an audio message, and I was like, oh God, like, what is this going to be? So I listened to it, and it was actually just like a love song, and I was like, oh my God, that's like the most innocuous thing it could have been. I was like, thank God, that could have been so bad. Like, it could, I don't know. It could be like audio of somebody like whacking it. I don't know what it's going to be. Like it, and for all the really, really nice people on there who just want to say hello and get to know you, it's like, unfortunately, there's been like 150 guys that came along before you who were all awful. It's a serious bummer. And I'm not even that popular or important, like, compared to like the women wrestlers out there, like all of my, colleagues over at WSU, God bless them. They get, like, I see it on their wall. They'll get on their timeline, they'll get like real weird comments and stuff, and I'm like, my God, that's not nearly as bad for me as it is for them.
Oh damn, I can only imagine. It gets weird. I mean, just some fans, I can only just will imagine and not really want to imagine that some fans, they get a little bit too into and get obsessive with the characters that they see, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, if I see you live as a human being at a show and you come up and you say hi, like, that's great. But if it's online, I have zero idea who you are. So it's like I have no gauge for where you're coming from. And, unfortunately, a lot of times they're coming from a bad place. And I can't imagine that really goes too much the other way around. Like, do women, like, slide into your DMs and send you booby pics? Like, I feel like that doesn't happen. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I haven't. Honestly, I have not been that lucky. I've not been that lucky. And if I do, my wife, she'd be jumping all over my shit. Like, what the hell? What the hell? I'm like, well, that's Everett Lee. This is Everett Lee. This ain't, your husband. This is Everett Lee, man. The ladies love Everett Lee. I mean, I can play it off like that.
They're just falling all over me.
I could play it off like that, though, but she'd be like, yeah, you're full of shit. You're busted.
Yeah, we're going on Maury. Give me a lie detector test.
You ever talking about Maury? You ever look at you ever see those memes of Hogan, or the one on Maury is like, I'm sorry, the results show that you're not everyone's brother.
I love that one, man. I love that one. Hulk Hogan is fantastic for the memery. I could kind of take or leave him now because he's, just very old and not really doing so much anymore. But, like, he's great for memeing. And his, have you seen the documentary about him? Oh, God, I don't remember what it's called, but it was a documentary about how he sued a tabloid for, like, publishing his, like a sex tape or something.
Yeah.
And it was like that whole controversy. It's a super good documentary, but I can't remember what the name of it was. But it was on Netflix, and I've seen it like a bunch of times. I find it so fascinating. Like, his case essentially shut down an entire news organization.
Jeez. There's only one person that can leg drop and put out a whole news organization. That's Hulk Hogan, brother.
Oh, it's called Nobody Speak. It came out in 2017. I've watched it a bunch of times. I'm very obsessed with documentaries about wrestlers that are not made by, like, WWE, because those are not real documentaries, and they're fantastic at churning out content where it's like, oh, look at, Finn Balor preparing for his match at WrestleMania, and it's like, this is one big promotional advertisement for WWE. It's not a documentary.
Right. Yeah, I like watching those documentaries on Netflix. I watched one that came out years ago about the Glow, about the original Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. The original girls.
Seen that one. Yes.
Yeah, that was really good. That was fantastic. I've had Patricia Summerlin on. I've had her on, and I've talked with her back and forth on social media plenty of times. Really, really great person, really down to earth. She just recently had surgery done where she had her implants taken out because they were causing sickness to her, and were just cancerous, and she had them removed, and she recovered well. She recovered well, and she's back on her feet, and I'm glad she's doing great, but just a great person to talk to, and she does quite a bit. I mean, a lot of the Gorgeous Lady Wrestling, the original Glow Girls, they still do a lot, and I know a couple of them have passed away in the last 2 or 3 years, but I mean, their career. If you look at that show, did you watch the show on Netflix that was based off of it, Glow?
The with Allison Brie and Mark Maron and all that. Yeah. Great show. I don't know anybody who hasn't watched it and who doesn't love it.
Yeah, that show is just great because it borderlines about a lot with the original Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, but the one thing is when that thing became popular, it kind of revived their careers because people were discovering, oh, there was an original Glow before this, and it's like,
right, for sure,
yeah, and so all like their careers just like jump back into just people like rediscovering them and knowing who they are, and that's great. That's
yeah. I would love to be on a show where we have some of the gorgeous ladies of wrestling, even if they just come in just to, sign autographs. That would be awesome to meet them. Because I've met a ton of wrestlers who have been around for a really long time, like your Tony Atlases and Abdullah the Butcher, and, I've met and like really great guys, but like there's not as long of a history of wrestling that goes back that far for women wrestlers. So Glow are some of the earliest women wrestlers that are out there, so they're definitely on my bucket list of people to meet, because even being a ring announcer and being kind of like quote unquote in the industry, like everybody who's in is still also a fan of wrestling, otherwise they wouldn't be there in the first place. So there's definitely still people I would hope to meet someday.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, there's some I definitely would love to meet, and there's some that I've met before. I think in the last couple years I've had one not so good encounter with a wrestler, and that was Animal from the Road Warriors. I believe I forget which one's alive and which one passed away. I forget which one, but the one that's still alive, I met him a while back, and it was awkward. It was awkward. I got my picture taken with him, and I tried talking to him, being like, "Hey, what's up? Appreciate everything you've done in wrestling." And JJ McGuire, I talked to him. You've heard of JJ McGuire? He collaborated with Jimmy Hart on a lot of the wrestling entrance music.
Okay.
Yeah, I mentioned to him. I mentioned JJ. I said I'll be meeting Animal, and he said tell him about SummerSlam '91 when they were in Wimbledon, and I mentioned that, and he was like, "Yeah, good times." And I tried to talk more to him and say, "Hey, here's JJ's number. He wants you to give him a call when you get a chance." He kind of just like brushed me off to the side, and I was like, "All right, fine. Nice talking to you," and I just walked off. It's just like, what the hell? Like if I was talking to you, like you were talking to me, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, yeah, okay, and then I just that just burns me in a way, and I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, it's tough because they're just also regular people who sometimes are having a bad day, or they're not feeling well, or they're very hungover, or they just got some crappy news, or they're in a lot of pain, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes you're not getting like the best version of them that you could, or that they wish they could give you, and sometimes they just can't.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of like with all celebrities, like everybody, like I remember, because I'm apparently like stuck in the 90s or whatever, but I remember like one time the Icelandic singer Bjork like attacked a camera person, like just like went, like somebody was asking her a question in an airport, and she was just like, "Gah!" and like went for him. Like sometimes they just snap. So
they do. So, celebrities, yeah, they just snap. I mean, hell, talking about like in the 90s there, look at what happened with Britney Spears, man. She went ape shit there for a while.
Yeah, she shaved her head and stuff. Yeah, she was like, she had a breakdown. And it's unfortunate because when you're a celebrity, everybody witnesses the breakdown. You don't get any like real privacy about it. So I mean, I don't know. It's tough. It seems like it's pretty tough being famous for all the glory of it. I'm sure, like logistically, it's a nightmare. But wrestlers are interesting because with the exception of the people who are super famous right now, like all your WWE people and stuff. With the exception of those people, most wrestlers are kind of just like very down to earth celebrities, because it's definitely a form of celebrity, but it's also very like niche. Like not everybody even knows who Road Warriors are. Not everybody knows who a lot of wrestlers are. Maybe they heard the name, but it doesn't mean as much to them if they're not a wrestling fan as it does to some other people. So it's like with everything else, I guess, where, like there's certain people who are famous enough that no matter what, if you met them or ran into them, you would know the significance. Like if I ran into Justin Bieber, I'm not a huge fan of Justin Bieber, but it would be significant. Like it would be pretty, that would definitely be like a huge highlight for me. Yeah. Dude, I met Justin Bieber. Like even if I don't care about him at all, and even if the people who I tell it to don't care at all, like don't care about him at all, still pretty significant. But then there's other people that like, there's like authors that I'm like, oh my God, if I met so-and-so, like it would be the most amazing thing ever. Whereas other people like wouldn't know him if they walked down the street.
Right.
I guess everybody's important to somebody though. Mm-hmm. Hopefully.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. I definitely do get it. I wanted to point out, though, the chat, man, since we've been live, has been on fire, man. I want to thank everyone tonight tuning in right here on the Everett Lee Show on twitch.tv/podcastc network and right here on facebook.com/the Everett Lee. If you are new to the page and you're new to the podcast, hit that thumbs up, man. Give me that thumbs up and follow me for when I go live with interviews such as the one you're viewing right now and listening to on the social media platforms or audio platforms. You can listen to Everett Lee Show on Podbeam, Stitcher Radio, and iTunes. So download those and follow Everett Lee Show. But let me read off some of this going on in the chat here, Rissa.
Are people sending you all those booby pictures that you haven't been getting?
Not yet. Not yet. If I didn't get a strike or ban, I'd probably like throw them up on the screen though. But then it probably wouldn't work out that well. But David C. Russell from Deathmatch Wrestle Podcast says hello, Everett Lee, and hello, Rissa. And
how's he doing? I heard that there was a show, I don't remember when it was probably months ago now, because like I said, I have no concept of time, but I heard that he got like clobbered in a Royal Rumble match by accident.
I don't know. He never did mention anything to me about that, man. I'll definitely have to ask him. I heard that somebody like tumbled out of the ring and flattened him. So I hope he's okay. Yeah. Also, yep, David was commenting on all the stuff we're talking about, the junk list, and mentioned about Hulk Hogan Gone Wild, and he definitely says documentaries. A good one to check out is the one with Brody, Bruiser Brody. That's a good one he mentioned. Chris Carnage. Oh, yeah.
Vice did a documentary series about called The Dark Side of the Ring, and I don't think I ended up ever finishing watching those, but I think the first episode I saw was about Bruiser Brody.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely have to check that one out there too. Chris Carnage from the Chris Carnage Show and Final Score, Chris Wilson. He said, "Yeah, buddy." And then, of course, we got my nephew. He's joining tonight. Chris Carnage in the house, and he said that he snapped into a Slim Jim once. And he says, "Yep, fire." So everything's on fire tonight here on this podcast, man. Yeah, you definitely you bring a lot of attention to yourself, and that's good. Now, when you do bring attention to yourself, you talked about the negative attention. What about the positive that you would bring to yourself? What positive stuff? Let's say, like in your DMs, besides all the perverts and creepers going after you. What are some positive things? I like to hear that.
Oh, it was kind of interesting, and it's completely unrelated to wrestling, but I had a tweet of mine last week, I think, get like embedded or like quoted in a BuzzFeed article, and it like blew up, and people are like, I'm still getting notifications on it of people like, I guess, arguing about it. But I think that like I think that a lot of people ended up kind of agreeing with me, because I happen to be watching the Wendy Williams show, and she kind of just like went off on a tangent where she essentially kind of did like a mini rant about like men wearing skirts and to stop wearing skirts, and that they don't get a menses, so they're not really women and whatever. And it's just like, where is this coming from? And I kind of tweeted about it, and I called it anti-trans because it was. Because it's like, what do you care if men want to wear skirts? Like, what does it matter to you? It doesn't make a difference. It makes zero difference to your life at all if men are wearing skirts. Like, are you jealous? They look better than you in it? That's not a good enough reason to not, to say that kind of thing.
Right. Right.
So they put it in a BuzzFeed article, and then later on that day, I think because of all the negative reaction to it, she put out like an apology, and she kind of said like, I need to do better, and I recognize that a large portion of my fan base are LGBTQ, and I don't want to alienate anybody. And it's like she did the right thing. Like, yeah. So, and I also don't like want to be one of those people who piles on celebrities and like tries to twist their words around, but she was just clearly going on like an anti-gay people rant. Right. And I think people sometimes kind of like, the longer they talk, the more they work themselves up. And I honestly think it was one of those kind of things where she just like, I don't know, she just kind of kept going and ended up in a place where she maybe didn't intend to. Uh-huh. So she ended up doing the right thing and apologizing, and I tweeted that too, but nobody saw that one. Like, I've gotten zero response on the one where I'm like, look, she apologized. Like, I'm trying to be conscientious and not just be like, yeah. Boo, you did one bad thing, cancel Wendy. Like, don't cancel Wendy. Yeah. Don't cancel anybody, yeah. Really.
Yeah.
Give them the opportunity to make things right.
Right. If Wendy Williams gets canceled, I don't know what the hell my wife's going to watch, because she watches her. She has her TV programs that she watch. She'll go through and if she can't watch them, then what she'll do is she'll record them, and then she'll go back and watch them. And yeah, if Wendy Williams got canceled, my wife would probably lose her shit.
I mean, yeah, she's got a serious fan base. Like I watched. Have you heard of Billy on the Street?
I've heard of Billy on the Street. Not too familiar with what. I've heard of the name. What's Billy?
He's just like a really intense comedian, and he runs around the streets of New York and asks people questions, and sometimes he drags a celebrity around with him. And he had John Oliver from Last Week Tonight with him, and they're running around, and he's like, I bet you that gay people have no idea who you are. So they're stopping people on the street being like, are you gay? Yes. Do you know who John Oliver is? And they're like, no. And he's like standing right there, and he's like, I have an HBO show, and they're like, no. And then Billy Eichner started saying like, okay, but do you know who Wendy Williams is? And they're like, yeah, I love Wendy. Like, all of the gay people that he stopped in New York all knew who Wendy Williams was, had no idea who John Oliver was, which is great.
That's great. That is great. That's great. I used to watch those back in the day. Earlier you said about 90s. I used to watch in the early 2000s. I used to watch Jackass all the time and Viva La Bam. I loved that shit, man.
Yes. I watched so much of that. I did so many dumb things with my body because of that show. And that disclaimer means nothing. Don't try this at home. And it's like, of course we're going to try this at home. Of course we are.
Did you ever watch Mad TV back in the day when it was on Mad TV?
Yes, yeah. I miss Mad TV, and I every once in a while one of those comics will pop up somewhere, and I'm like, oh, good. Like, I'm glad they're okay.
I like the one where they had Kenny Rogers. It was he did hey, I'm Kenny Rogers and this is Jackass. I like that parody when they did that there.
Oh my god, I haven't thought about that in forever.
that was some great shit right there. That was some great shit. I loved that.
Stone Cold Steve Austin was on Mad TV a couple of times because Frank is it Frank Caliendo?
I think so, yeah.
No, Will Sasso. Yeah, Will Sasso did an impression of Stone Cold Steve Austin, and there was a couple, like he was a guest on like a couple of episodes because of that. And it was really he was very charming and funny. He's
Yeah.
got timing. I think Stone Cold Steve Austin, like, they make a lot of really crappy movies with him in them, and he's not like the best actor or anything. But like when people know his limits as an actor, he pulls it off reasonably well. But he's not like he's not like Hulk Hogan levels of bad acting.
Yeah.
Which, like, Hulk Hogan is so bad it's good.
Right. Yeah. I
Hulk
mean,
Hogan, I put on Hulk Hogan movies sometimes just when I like want to laugh at something really, really stupid. Like that's like a guilty pleasure for me. Like putting on like there's a one where he has to be a nanny to some like rich brat kids. There's the one where he's like an alien and he comes to Earth and he's got to arrest another alien or something. Like there's a bunch of terrible movies with him in them from like the late 80s, early 90s. And then what's it called? What's the main one?
which one?
No, it's not Over the Top. That's the arm wrestling movie.
Yeah, that's Stallone. That's Stallone.
No, what's the one with Hulk Hogan in it and he fights Tiny Lister.
Oh, yeah. I know which one you're talking about.
I'm so upset that I can't think of the name
No
of it right
Holds
now.
Bar. No Holds Bar.
Huh?
Yeah.
No Holds Barred.
Yeah.
No Holds Barred is one of my favorite movies to watch. Like sometimes if I have people over my house who are not wrestling fans, I'll just put that on in the background and slowly by the end of it, everybody is paying rapt attention to how ridiculous No Holds Barred is. It's fantastic.
That's great. I love it. I love it. That's great. I haven't seen that movie in years, man. I haven't seen that one. And what's another one that he did? Mr. Nanny or The Nanny, where he was a bodyguard for those kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was another one right there. And then there's what else is there? Damn, I can't think of the shit. Oh yeah, he did the TV show Thunder in Paradise. That was good. You're like,
that's not the word I would use.
Yeah, I mean that was I liked it when it first came out because I was only like 14, 15 years old. I was like, this is great.
God.
This is great because I was a Hulk Hogan fan. I loved it. Because it was something because if you remember back in the day, NBC had that show called Sequest. They had that show Sequest. And then Thunder in Paradise came out, and they went head-to-head with each other. And then at the end, Thunder in Paradise ran that one season, and that was it. It was done. And then after that was done, then everyone's like, yeah, Sequest it beat Thunder in Paradise. And then like a few months later, they canceled Sequest. They're like, done. Because
they tried to go for like that period of time. It was like all about boat dramas, I think. Or like it just wasn't really working. But it was like a really quick phase, and then everybody got over it like immediately. But there was like a great golden time where like Miami was the place to be, and it was all about like the pastel colors and like the super super short shorts. And I was growing up like as a kid in like the 90s. I'm like, oh, that's what people do, I guess. Like people just wear really short shorts and just hang out at the beach all day and everybody's blonde. I guess that's reality. Like that's very much warped my perception of reality when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Oh, the pastel. There was so much like pastel and neon and stuff. It was just like we had just discovered that those colors existed or something. Like maybe like highlighters had just been invented and it's like, let's just put that shit everywhere. It was a terrible time.
It was. I had some of those bad clothes as a kid in the late 80s and early 90s. I had those bad clothes, man. I did with the neon stuff that had the one saying like, yeah. It just I had to wear that shit, man. I had to wear that shit. I go to school.
You didn't have a choice.
Yeah, I didn't have a choice, man. I didn't have my choice. It was what my parents could afford. And then I go to school, and then you get those kids that have about anything their parents would give them. They come to school wearing fucking Air Jordans and like nice like Fabu, what the hell? I don't even know, designer clothes, and they're coming to school looking like that. And here I come with my $9.99 Walmart outfit. You know, I got to school. It's like, look at my imitation Nikes. I got Payless for $9.99. Just that's all I can afford, man. And then I would get poked fun at and stuff. And then I always said to myself, I'm gonna get a pair of Air Jordans. Well, eventually, it took me last year. I found a pair of Air Jordans at a I went to a thrift shop, and I found a pair of Air Jordans sitting right there, and they were my size. It's like, yeah,
that's fate.
Finally, after all these years, I'm freaking 41 years old, and I freaking got a pair of fucking Air Jordans. Finally, it took me that long.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I remember wearing like Jordache jeans. And like, you know, or like corduroy pants, and like the bottoms were like you know, like elastic, like sweatpants, but they were corduroy. Like somebody thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
Overalls.
Yeah.
There was a serious, like, every child wears overalls, and it's like, that's a horrible idea. Children and very old people are the people who need the most to be able to quickly pull their pants down. Like, and you're going to make everybody wear overalls and just buttons and stuff like that. Come on, you're overcomplicating this.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how many more accidents there were in the 90s in classrooms because they had to put those like overalls on everybody.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Well, actually, I had a pair of overalls there. I had a 6th grade teacher.
Everybody did. It's not your fault.
It's not my fault. Yeah,
it's not like a 90s survivor support group, like 90s fashion survivors.
Yeah, that would be something. I had a 6th grade teacher. She wouldn't, when you enter her class, you had to wear them strapped over. Remember the style? You had one undone, or you had where basically you had them undone, but they're like wrapped. Remember that shit? Remember that style? And I had this one teacher. Oh, don't you come in my classroom wearing that? It's like, you wear them properly, like a person. And we right before she'd be outside the classroom there checking everyone as they'd come in, and she'd be looking, as like, get those overalls all up on there. It's like, yes, Miss Fryer. Yes, Miss Fryer. She'd just come in there. And then you'd go over to the next class, and all of a sudden you'd throw off the straps. You're like, yeah. And all of a sudden she'd come walking in to say something to the teacher. She'd look over. She'd like, you better get those overalls back on, man. You better get them over on. Right? It's like, you know, it's like she's going to whip your ass, man, teacher.
Oh, you're so cool. Like, haha, class is over. Fling, you know, and you just take the one off.
Yeah.
You feel like you're such a cool guy.
She was a control freak, man. during the last break or last class during the day, we'd was going to class, and she'd get over by the water fountain and not let people take a drink. It's like I'd come back right when PE. I'm like, I'm dying of thirst. I'm like, I had to go across the freaking school to get back over to my last period class of the day. And then there is like water, and then all of a sudden there's that big ass teacher sitting right there. You know, it's like, move, you know.
That's so weird.
Deprive me of water.
Why does she care?
I don't know, because too many kids spend too much time and gossip at the water fountain. You know, that type of deal.
Adults had the water cooler. The kids had the water fountain.
Yeah, you had the water fountain. That water fountain, man, that thing, one time something happened to it, and kids, we were all getting shocked because we'd hit the button and we'd get shocked. We couldn't drink out of it. And so someone came up took a pencil, or the eraser at the end. They stuck it to the thing, and it turned on without getting shocked. So everyone's like looking around for a freaking pencil, and this one kid had it, and he was sitting there handing it off to everybody, passing it off while everyone taking turns taking a drink out of the water fountain.
Hey, you know, good for them for the ingenuity.
Yeah. I think that kid ended up actually becoming like some kind of engineer or architect. I don't know. I forget his name. But
good for him.
Yeah, definitely.
You should look him up and get him on the show. Hey, pencil guy.
Yeah, remember me? Yeah, I was the one that wore the neon shirts and stuff in school. I sat next to you.
I had overalls, and I always had one strap undone because I was exceptionally cool.
Yeah. Had the hair. I had my haircut. I had it where I had long hair, and then I had like on the side of my head, I'd have like a strip like shaved. Remember those haircuts where you got the lines and everything gone?
Yeah.
Yeah, like what the hell, man, with the fashion back then.
I kind of wish that would come back in style because, like, most of my head is shaved. So I'm like, this is prime territory to, like, put a word in there. Like, I want the words on the shaved head thing to come back because I'd be all about that. Especially, like, right here, like, because I put it over to the side, I could have a message on here that only I know about. You know, and if you, like, you know, if you say the magic, you know, I ask you a riddle, and if you answer it correctly, I show you the side of my head. The secret on it. Like with the like what's the codes to the nuclear bomb? I'll never tell.
It's like riddle me this, Batman.
Yeah. I got the makings of a great supervillain here with the hair.
I was watching the video that's up on YouTube of you. It's a collection of you doing ring announcing. And
oh yeah, the reel.
Yeah, the reel. I enjoyed that. And I noticed you've had your hair. You have it pretty much different, like light or dark, and just over one side, and just different ways and stuff. And it's like never the same. Never same. I gotta say, your hairstyle is better than what Corey Graves can pull off.
What's wrong with? Didn't he shave his head?
Yeah, he shaved his head.
He had a very nice undercut thing going, and he would slick it up. I think he probably shaved his head because he has to wear the headset, and he was tired of messing up his hair.
Yeah,
that's my theory. I think he shaved it off just for simplicity. Yeah,
that's what I think, because there for a while, man, it was like starting to like just grow up and stuff. It almost kind of, I hate to say this, almost started to look like a Johnny Bravo type deal, you know?
Yeah, it was like a high top.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, it was getting high. It was definitely getting high there, and yeah, he shaved that off there, but I enjoyed that highlight reel of you doing commentary and stuff. I need to
update it. I'm like waiting on clips from some of the promotions that I've worked for, just because that's like a couple years old by now, and I'm like, I feel like I have better quality video stuff laying around too. So like I started working on a new reel back in like October, and I have not finished it yet. It's one of those things where you're just like, do I want to spend hours on end rooting through footage of myself? Like, you know, that can get annoying after a while, listening to yourself endlessly.
Yeah. Yeah, when I go back, when I have to go back and actually like do some kind of montage for my show, I go back and I'm looking and I'm like, God dang, I got so much content, 3 years of content.
Yeah.
Of as of right now, 172 episodes, counting this one. I would say, it's like so much content to go back, and there were some episodes where they were great, some were, and then there were some that were just off the wall, just great. And then a lot of interviews I've done so many interviews. I've interviewed probably the same people over probably twice, and now I've done a couple that's like been 3 times now. That's like been the most, which in the last 3 years, I say that's pretty damn good. Interviewing like a couple people just 3 times within the last 3 years. And
yeah, you must be doing something right. Otherwise, they wouldn't say yes 3 times.
Yeah. First time's a charm, man. First time's a charm coming on, and then coming on again. And then I had people just hit me up and say, hey, I want to come back on, book me. And then I had a guest last month, just when I got off doing a live show. I was talking about, I'd like to get you back on. He's like, I could do next month. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. So I booked him for next month. He's coming back on. I don't know what we'll be talking about, but we'll be talking about some stuff and talking about upcoming events he's going to be doing, because it's great just talking with all the people and just going back through all the footage and stuff, because I've been there's something in the works that I can't say too much right now. People's probably seen some stuff on my Facebook page, but there's something coming on May 26th, and everyone's gonna like it. Everyone's gonna like it because I'm gonna like it. But the hard part is just material. There's shit that I've come across that I fucking forgot. I've like, I talked about that. I'm like, wow. And I came upon an old episode because I was going back looking at something, and I was just going through, catching myself going through, looking back at the archives. And one of the things I came back across was a old episode I did from like when I started out, and I was listening to it, and it's funny because some of the stuff I was talking about resonated in what was happening today with some movies and stuff. And I said to myself, I was like, wow, what are the odds of that? I was talking about Fast and Furious at the time, talking about, what was it, a possible spin-off from the Fast and Furious with The Rock, and then all of a sudden, years later, you got Hobbs and Shaw, and I was like, wow. I was just reading, dirt stuff that was coming out at the time, and it actually came out and stuff like that. But like, I was talking about The Rock and Jason Statham, doing a spin-off, and then damn, that happens, and then all of a sudden, just around that time, me finding this stuff. What was it? The Fast and Furious 9 trailer has come out, and we got John Cena.
Yeah, I guess it must be, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got John Cena playing the villain to Donald.
They're just putting that guy in everything now.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's doing, like, behind the scenes. He must have the best agent alive, because he's in everything. There's like 2 or 3 movies that I'm seeing previews for that have John Cena, and then like they're all these previews all at once that have him in that. Like he's in that one. He's in I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, but I keep seeing him. I'm like, how is this happening? Like not to detract or anything, but John Cena is definitely not like, I wouldn't expect him to be this popular. Yeah. He's like this big, he's just, I think like when The Rock first started doing movies, he wasn't that big. Like he was, compared to a regular person, he was huge, of course, but in like wrestling comparison, like he wasn't that huge. Like John Cena is just like, I don't know, I find him to be like comically buff, and it like in Hollywood, compared to other action stuff, like he really sticks out.
Yeah.
Especially because he's white. Like I feel like The Rock popping up and being buff and stuff, like it's more of a singular thing, whereas white people, because white people are cast in movies like so much more frequently, having a white guy be that big and huge and buff is like, I don't know, it's like, it reminds me a little bit more of like Hulk Hogan, like when they were putting him in movies and stuff, like that run, even though the acting abilities are totally different. Like that's kind of what it reminds me of. Whereas when The Rock started making movies, like it just made a lot. He slid right in there, and it was very. You could tell he was very at home immediately. Yeah. John Cena, I feel like they've been kind of like popping him in little bit roles, and then eventually it's like now he's really taken off.
Oh yeah,
which good for him,
Yeah, the Rock. Yeah, you mentioned that because The Rock, I guess, kind of started a new trend. I mean, Hogan was the first one to step over from wrestling, the world of wrestling, and doing movies. But then The Rock took it a step further, and I guess it had to do with the right agents and the right roles that he can do. I mean, look at what he's done already. And another perfect example of someone following that trend was Batista. Batista was in one of the biggest comic book movie franchises of all time. That's Guardians of the Galaxy. I remember when I heard about Guardians of the Galaxy when I first came out, or when it was about to come out, a lot of people were like, this was a B-rated comic no one really cared too much about. They were part of the the Infinity Gauntlet story in the comics with Thanos. They came in to help the Avengers. And people said, well, I don't think a movie like Guardians of the Galaxy is going to do well compared to what the first two Avengers did. Boom, it blew up big. It made the comic popular again, and it made big. It helped. It made a lot of a shitload of money at the box office, and it actually helped Chris Pine, and it helped Bradley Cooper and Vin Diesel. I mean, you had a good cast there, and even Batista playing Drax. That was freaking. I love his performance as Drax, the Destroyer, and he's went on and he's done. I mean, some great stuff. I mean, hell, he was a villain in the last James Bond movie.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
He's doing well too in a way that I did not expect. Especially when you think about the way his character was portrayed back when he was in WWE. There was the whole rah, he was, so. But also, I think Guardians, in terms of Marvel stuff, Guardians is kind of that they're my favorite ones, and I knew nothing about Guardians of the Galaxy, the comic book. I know very little about Captain America. The whole, I know who Spider-Man is because everybody knows who Spider-Man is.
Yeah.
But I was very much not in tune with any of that whole thing. And I saw Guardians of the Galaxy. I was like, okay, these are my people. And because it was so silly and goofy and lighthearted and stuff, and previously the only movies that were really like that were some of the Iron Man movies, I guess. Yeah. I think that they kind of reopened the door to hey, we don't have to have all these movies be super gritty and super serious. So then you have afterward you have more Thor movies that are really goofy and funny, and then all of the following, well, not all of, but a lot of the other Marvel movies that came after that had that kind of lighthearted vibe. And I think that it kind of turned, I think Guardians coming out when it did kind of helped turn the Marvel franchise back into, not back into, but helped it further differentiate itself from what DC was doing. And unfortunately, DC did not do great.
No. Yeah.
By comparison.
Yeah, the DC now, I'd have to say DC has, they conquered the small screen. If you look at the CW shows they have.
That's true.
Arrow, Flash, DC has done fantastic on the small screen. But the big screen, that's where Marvel rules. And Marvel, I mean, they've had, was it Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that was pretty successful, but when it came to DC trying to do big movies, some of them were just, I mean, I'd have to say, the newer ones have been so-so, but the only new movie I can think of, and I agree with that right there. My nephew pointed out Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was fucking fantastic. I love that.
Wonder Woman, when it came out on my birthday, so I took myself out to go see Wonder Woman on my birthday. It was awesome. That one was, I feel one of the last ones where they actually did a good movie, where I'm that is a solid, good superhero movie, checks all the boxes, does all the things that it's supposed to do, and doesn't do extra stuff that it's not supposed to do.
Right.
And every movie that came afterward, they've just been all over the place.
Yeah.
They're guess what? Gritty, dark. We're going Nolan with the Batmans, and then it's now it seems goofy. It's played out, so now it's a parody of itself. You can't even do that anymore. And then they're guess what? Aquaman movie, and it's just this. It's so overstimulating, so much more color and saturation than is necessary. Every single thing in the shot is in focus for no good reason, and there's it's this Technicolor acid trip nightmare. There's at least a half an hour and at least one subplot more in that movie than there needed to be.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare. It was like watching someone's bad acid trip, that movie.
I actually have not sat down and watched it yet. I was going to watch it this past weekend, though, but I ended up watching something else. And
unless you're like a DC completist, I think you can probably skip that one because they already introduced him and they had the big huge battle with the Justice League, and then that's another thing, they put out this Justice League movie before you have Aquaman have his own origin movie. So then they felt like they needed to like amp it up more, and it's like you didn't have to amp it up more. You didn't have to make it be like Dolph Lundgren is in it for some reason, and he's completely wasted. Like, oh God, what's her name? What's his mom's name? This is gonna kill me.
Amber Heard, the one who shit on Johnny Depp's bed.
No, that's the love interest.
Yeah, that's the love interest.
What's the mom's name?
Oh, I forget.
I'm so not remembering names of things tonight. I'm so off. Normally I'm so on top of it. Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, Nicole Kidman.
Like, why was Nicole Kidman in this movie? You didn't need Oscar-winning caliber actress Nicole Kidman to be the mom in Aquaman. Like, what's happening? The whole thing, it was like, I feel like they just had a bunch of ideas on a wall and they just like threw darts and they're like, that's what we're gonna do.
You see Zack Snyder. DC hired Zack Snyder, and Zack Snyder, he took a shot at Marvel and said, comic movies aren't supposed to be happy and funny. They're supposed to be dark and gruesome and gritty. And that's why Batman vs. Superman. The only thing I liked out of Batman Superman, it took forever to build up the fight. I wanted to see them fight. And when it got to that point when they fought, I was like, yeah, that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see these two kick each other's ass. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see how Batman was going to whip Superman and how Superman was going to whip Batman. I was so happy to see Batman use kryptonite weapons. It's like, oh, he's got your number, dude. He's got your number. But how that ended, that fight, I thought came off weak. And it just, like they ruined Doomsday in that movie, like my nephew said. Yeah, Zod, they turned him into Doomsday. Come on now. And then you had from the Social Network playing Lex Luthor.
Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, he
that name I know.
He should have not been Lex. They should have used someone else besides him. But it was just.
I find that guy as an actor, I find him super distracting. So anytime and it's nothing against him. Sure, he's Jesse Eisenberg. You're never going to hear this, but if you do, you're probably a swell guy. He's just one of those people where I just don't like his face.
Yeah. And
I can't, like, he's one of them. Jared Leto is another one where I'm just like, if I never see your face again, I will be happier. I don't know why, he just irks me. Certain people just bother me.
Right. Speaking of Jared Leto, I think he's found that role that is going to define him, like Robert Downey Jr. found Iron Man, Tony Stark. Because when you think of Robert Downey Jr., you think Iron Man, Tony Stark. The role that I think that people by next year will be saying when they hear the name Morbius, they're going to say Jared Leto, because that trailer looks fucking awesome. I don't know.
I didn't even see it.
Morbius, look it up. Look it up on YouTube. Morbius, the living vampire. They introduced him in the comic book story with Spider-Man, where Peter Parker, he grew 6 extra arms like a spider, and he was trying to get a cure. And so someone mentioned go see Dr. Morbius. So when he go see Dr. Morbius was, Dr. Morbius, though, but he was a vampire. He tried to do some kind of experiment on him or something, and it backfired. It turned him into a vampire. And
were they like gross extra arms, or were they just like regular arms, but more of them than there should be?
Yeah, regular 6 arms. He grew like 4 on.
Why would you try to find a cure for that? Do you know how convenient that is?
Well, he didn't want his secret to get out that he was.
So much more shit. I like that. Like, I'm one of those people who, at all times, if I could, I would be walking around with 2 drinks. Like, I like to have a glass of water and a glass of something with flavor in it, and I go back and forth. That would be really convenient if I had like a couple extra arms. I could just carry 2 drinks with me all the time. That's honestly my dream.
That would be something right there. Yeah, you wouldn't. I wouldn't leave the house, man. But I would.
I would go back to wrestling school if I had extra arms. That's an advantage that no one else in the ring can get over you. I could just, if I got strong enough, I could be holding like 3-4 guys at once and just slam them. I want to go see this movie. This movie is my goal now.
What to grow 6 extra arms?
That would be pretty rad. So long as I didn't grow like 6 extra eyeballs. That's like too much.
Oh God, yeah. You're talking about some fucking fly shit right there. Damn.
Yeah. If you ever see like a close-up photo of a spider's face, it's like hell is staring back at you. They're so gross. Like if they're small enough and I know where they are, like there's like probably 4 or 5 spiders in everybody's house right now at least. If I know where they are, it's fine. If I come upon one and I wasn't ready for it, I lose it. Like I'm not, certain people are arachnophobic, and I'm a lot less arachnophobic than I used to be. I just don't like being startled by them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't stand that shit, man. The bugs and spiders and stuff just freak me the fuck
Cave
out.
crickets. I can't handle a cave cricket. I'll leave the house.
Yeah,
you have cave crickets where you are?
Yeah, there's crickets, especially after it rains here in Daytona, and after it rains, then you get these crickets out there. I got a frog that hangs around the side of my house. I was outside one night, and I was let the dog out. I'm standing out there, and it just got done raining, and I can hear the crickets in the background, and I look over the side of my house and my window, and all of a sudden I look, and freaking frog jumped out of nowhere, hit the window. He was like, bump.
Oh God!
And all of a sudden he was like, bump, 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 coming closer to me. I'm like, get away! And then he jumped on the door, and when I opened up the door and let the dog back in, he got in the house. So I didn't know this dude was in the house. So later that night, okay, I'm asleep, and where me and my wife's bedroom is, it leads into the kitchen. So up on one of my cabinets, I got a bunch of collector bottles of Jack Daniels and old Jack Daniel whiskey bottles and stuff that I collect, and some shot glasses. That's one of my things I like collecting is shot glasses. I got shot glasses I've collected at each state I've been in, and so I have that all sitting up there, and I have this one Dollywood shot glass where I have a England flag and a U.S. flag in it, and we're sitting there. I was asleep one night. We had the door open, and all of a sudden we hear this crashing, or actually, I heard something. It sounded like someone shot my window. My wife jumped up and is like, Denver. I was like, what the fuck, man? I'm like 3 o'clock in the morning trying to sleep, babe. He's like, did you hear that? And I was like, yeah, but I didn't really pay too much attention to it. And we heard it again. So I was like, who did I piss off this time? Who did I piss off this time? Or was it Everett Lee that pissed someone off? So I got up, man. I grabbed my Glock, and I freaking went through the house, and I'm like looking around and stuff. I'm peeking out the back door and I go out the side door. I'm out there. I'm ready to freaking go gangster on someone. I'm looking around. I was like, I don't see shit. So I go back inside the house. I go back in the house there, and as soon as I go back in, my wife had the lights on, and she's like, I found what made the noise. And I was like, what is it? And she's like, it's on the door. I was like, what? It's on the door. There was that damn frog. He was on the door. So I take a bucket, and this is 3 o'clock in the morning. I take a bucket, and I'm trying to catch him. He jumps in the room. My wife jumps in the bed with my wife. She screams. He jumps out. He's jumping all around the room, and he jumps back out into the kitchen. I'm like, I get him in the bucket. So he's on the ground, so I throw the bucket on him, and I basically slide something up underneath him, and then I'm like, okay, so I open up the door and I throw him out, and so I put the bucket back down. All of a sudden, he comes back out of the bucket. I'm like, son of a bitch, he hung on. So I'm trying to throw him out, and he's like, I ain't going nowhere, motherfucker. I'm not going
It's nice in here.
So I'm sitting there trying to get a frog out of my house 3:30 damn morning. I finally get him out. So that morning, a few hours later, wake up to the sound of my daughter waking us up. And as soon as I get up, I go in the kitchen there, and I look, and I happen to look up. I'm sitting there at the breakfast bar there. I'm sitting there drinking a cup of coffee, and I kind of look up, and I say to myself, what happened to my Dollywood shot glass? And I looked down, and it was on the ground. He got up there where the bottles were, and when he jumped, he clipped it, and that's that crashing sound we heard. But the funny thing is, that shot glass did not break from being up that high, and it hit the ground.
That's crazy. I mean, because up there, he could have knocked over like everything, you know? He could have knocked down bottles, and he would definitely have broken bottles. He would have broke, So a shot glass is probably the best thing he could have knocked over, really. Because they're small, and the glass is thicker. So if it had been like a full-size bottle, it would have shattered all over the place. Yeah,
that would have been the only drawback on there if he would have hit that. He would have hit a full-size bottle. The son of a bitch would have fell over, and it would have shattered. But yeah, that Dollywood shot glass. I have hard tile stone floor in my house, and it hit that there, and it didn't even bust. Didn't even put a scratch or anything in it. I was surprised.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I was.
Do you have lizards in Daytona?
Yeah, we got lizards. They hang around. I watch them run around my fence all the time. I'll be outside there, and I'll watch them run up and down the fence there. And one day I saw one that was just freaking great. One was just sitting there, not even moving, not even doing anything. And this bee comes flying by, and all of a sudden he was like, Chew. I was like, what the hell?
I love lizards, man. I would love to move down to Florida or like New Orleans or whatever. I want to be in lizard country. Like, that's the climate for me. Like, if a lizard can survive there, then I'll probably be good there. I'm not one of these like cold weather people. Everybody I know is like, oh, the snow, and it's so beautiful. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not beautiful when it stops and I have to go out and shovel it. I'm not interested in that. I don't want to be cold. I would run. I don't know. The argument is always, like you can put more layers on, but there's only so many layers you can take off, and like I get that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, there's air conditioning, man. There's air conditioning everywhere you go. You're never gonna just be like outside and just fall over of heat stroke.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Just go in. I have no problem being constantly covered in like a layer of moisture at any given time. Like, I'm not my nose will pop like a cork from a bottle of wine anytime it's remotely dry out. So winter is like the worst for me. But Florida is like nearly tropical. So it's just constantly like that moist heat. And people from Arizona come over and visit New Jersey, and they're like, what's wrong with this place? It's terrible here. It's so wet. It's disgusting. I'm just like, used to it now. I'm used to it, man. Like, we have the same amount of moisture in the summertime in New Jersey as you guys do in Florida, for sure.
Yeah. My wife's from New Jersey. She's from New Jersey. My wife is.
Where at in New Jersey?
I think it's Middleton. That's where she's from. Middleton. Yeah, Middleton.
That's like the most generic town name. Now I gotta Google
it. Yeah, she lives there. It's like more like middle of Jersey there. Like,
okay.
Next to Middleton.
It's near Long Branch.
Hazlitt around there and stuff.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. That's where she grew up at. She took me out to the boardwalk one time when went up there to. I got to point this out. My nephew said, "Yeah, here in Florida we got lizards and crackheads."
All right, well, if you've ever been to certain neighborhoods in Philadelphia, we got those too, not the lizards. I think there's more. I want to say that there's more meth in Florida, but
yeah.
You know what? I think Florida gets a really bad rap. There are different. Florida is so big. There are like multiple. It's like 5 different states in one.
Yeah.
Like, depending on where you are, is like completely different vibes. And then you'll be driving in Florida, and you'll drive for like 2 hours without seeing another car. Like, it's bizarrely big and empty, and also just like insanely infested with people.
Yeah.
It's a bizarre place.
It is.
Right?
It is.
Cool. I think it's neat. I like it.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. There's a lot here, a lot to do here. I mean, we got Disney and Orlando. There's always stuff to do there. I mean, over in Tampa, you have stuff going on. You even have stuff going like down south of where I'm at here. You have stuff going on in Miami, stuff in Jacksonville. You have a lot of things going on here.
You got the Keys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You get the Keys. You have a lot of things that goes on here and stuff, and you have a lot of wrestling promotions here too. You would not believe how many damn wrestling promotions there is in Florida. It's freaking crazy, man. Dusty Rhodes made Florida wrestling popular back during his time, man. I mean, he put Florida wrestling on the map there with the stuff he was doing with Florida Championship Wrestling, and he brought a lot of attention to it there. I mean, now you have, if around my area here, if you have, there's Go Wrestle, and then up north from me, there's I know of Knockout Wrestling, and in Orlando you got MLW, and then south of me in Cocoa you got ARW Atomic Revolutionary Wrestling, and then over in Tampa, over in Port Richey area, you have wrestling there too, and then there's so much wrestling. You don't know. It's just so diverse. You can if you can't find a wrestling promotion in Florida, you're not looking.
Mm-hmm.
You're not looking.
Sounds
and
good.
You got good ones, and you got bad ones, and you got some that start up, and then some that are just not great, and you got some that are run by people who don't know what the hell they're doing. And you got some.
Well, that's everywhere, though.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to start somewhere. They got to have their first show, and it's never going to go the way that they wanted it to. So.
Yeah. Then you got some shows. You got some shows and some promotions where you got people that the promoter decides to put themselves over more than the talent when it comes to a show, which they think they're bigger than the talent. I don't know, but that's basically what you got in Florida. You got a diverse variety of promotions here. That's just, you can find something, and you can find work. If a worker can find work and go within a lot of the promotions here, and it's a melting pot of wrestling, man. It's great. It's great being in the smack middle of it.
Sure. I'm sure everybody hopes that they're going to get called down to the performance center, so it makes a lot of sense to stay in that general area if they're trying to get looked at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they got their scouts that they put out there.
But they do travel. Like I've seen WWE scouts in Jersey and in Pennsylvania and like the middle of nowhere doing a show, because they go where the talent is. If you have enough buzz as a performer, it's not inevitable that they're going to find you, but it's a decent chance that they will find you. I mean, if it's WWE or nothing, then yeah, if you can swing it, just go be in Florida. That's a good way, I guess, to kind of show how serious you're taking it. But it's WWE. They got all the money in the world. They got all that Saudi Arabia money. They'll come to you too.
Yeah. They definitely will come to you.
Isn't that, I don't know, do you find the Saudi Arabia thing like very bizarre?
I do. I look at the Saudi Arabia thing with the money that they've thrown, the prince over there throwing at Vince. Money talks. Look at look at the last 2 years. Look who's went over there. You know, they've thrown money at Vince and said, we want Hulk Hogan. We want AJ Styles. We want The Fiend. We want this. We want that. You know, it's like you better get Prince Hubba what he wants.
I mean, it's I don't know. I find we know why.
Yeah.
And the why is money.
Yeah.
But it's like once they came to WWE and were like, hey, we want you to come do shows here, it's just interesting that they were just like, yeah, we'll take all your bajillions of dollars, rather than being like, okay, well, this is a cool idea of a way, this is a cool model that we can set up where we can start doing more shows more broadly on an international level. Like, it's weird to me that it's just like, hey, we're going to go do the Saudi Arabia. It's almost like, it's kind of like, it reminds me a little bit of like your divorced dad, and he's suddenly like every weekend he wants to go over to his new girlfriend's house, and you're like, I don't know how I feel about your new girlfriend yet, Dad. I don't know. But it's like every time you talk to him, he's like, oh, I'm going over so-and-so's house over in Saudi Arabia. And I was like, I don't know, you can't. You know, Dad, you got to see what else is out there. You know, you gotta,
exactly.
You have plenty of fish, Dad. I don't know. I find it strange. I find it really strange. Like, I understand the money. Like, I get it, but at the same time, it's like, WWE, the biggest wrestling promotion ever, does, I don't know how many pay-per-views a year now in one specific other country. For that other country, the programming for those shows is completely self-contained and has nothing to do with the storylines that the entire rest of the world watches. They make that programming specifically for those people. The women have to wrestle with their arms and legs entirely covered.
Yeah.
It's just such a weird, I don't know, I find it profoundly bizarre. And it's like, again, I know why, but it doesn't I know why, but it still doesn't really, I don't get it. I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
And the XFL also coming back and being a thing again. I'm also sort of like, yeah, okay, I'm sure that they think they're going to make money, but like, why? Why is this happening?
Well, I can answer one thing about the XFL. If you look at how the XFL was back what 20 years ago, how that started out, they weren't too prepared. Everything was an idea, and when that idea started becoming a reality, and then everyone decided, well, yeah, this is going to be great. And they started forming the teams, and they threw everything together, and then they started playing games.
Mm-hmm.
Their first show, I mean, their first game was like ratings was just like bam. It's like, yeah, this is new. This is going to stay. And then you had some people who, after a while, started dropping off watching it. They're like, this ain't really that great, because they figured it was going to, when they said Vince called it smash mouth football, you figured someone's going to be running out there on the field like Stone Cold with a chair, whipping someone's ass.
Yeah, they promised it. They promised that it was going to be a lot more gimmicky than it could possibly be, and still be football.
Yeah, that's what the whole idea was there. But one of the things was that when it was just also too, he said smash mouth football. This is football. Okay, we got football. And in the names of the teams was funny. That was gimmicky, but it was just everything from that first FXL was just thrown in together, and it wasn't actually planned out timely wise. I can't even that. Strategy wise, it wasn't planned out, so that's why it failed. Now they've had all this time to actually sit down and look and plan stuff out, from throwing everything together within a year to 6 months Now, they've probably planned stuff out the last 4 or 5 years, if you really look at it, behind the scenes. And in the last 2 years, there's like, oh, yeah, XFL's coming back out, or the last year. But how long have they been planning everything by that time? Then when they went public with it, how many years have they actually been planning it behind the scenes without telling anyone? You see, getting everything, it's like, this can work, but if we do it like this, it will work. And then that gives them enough time to do it like this to make it work. Unlike 1 year to 6 months, yeah, just throw this together, that together. Yeah, that's going to work, this work. All right, good. Here you go. There's your football. That's why I think it's going to do better this time around. Because
they definitely seem like they have it together a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's still kind of a head scratcher to me. And I'm trying to figure out where the money's coming from. Besides Vince, because I know it's not just him.
Yeah. I think he actually, this is Vince's thing, bringing it back, and he's going to be spending more time working with the XFL than WWE, which leads, Vince will still have the final call on what goes on with WWE, but the person that's going to probably be running things while he's focusing more on FXL is going to probably be Hunter and Stephanie. They're going to be looking at running things more, I think. Yeah,
I don't even know anymore. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't even know.
Well,
I'm not a fan of the WWE product as it stands right now. I'm not very into it, so I haven't been watching with any regularity anyway. The last thing that I really paid attention to was the Royal Rumble. Probably was that the last pay-per-view.
Yeah, that was the last big pay-per-view. Over the weekend they had, I don't know if did you follow NXT? Have you followed NXT, what this stuff they were doing?
I generally like NXT a little bit better than Raw and SmackDown at the moment, but I'm not really paying much attention to them at the moment either. There's a couple people over there that I think are really cool. I just the whole this Bobby Lashley Lana thing is this continual weird, it shouldn't have been an angle in the first place, and it just won't stop. They just won't stop, and nobody likes it. No one's into it.
Yes.
No one likes it. 0 people like it. It's weird. It's
it is
gross, awkward, and weird, and it's 2020, and why is this wifey cheaty angle happening anymore? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know who's in charge of that and whose idea that angle was, but it's not good, and it just keeps going.
Yeah. The had to take my sunglasses off, and these things started fogging up. It's getting hot in here. I can't see shit. So let's lose the gimmick glasses there. So, yeah, the Rusev thing and Lana thing, that shit just drove me crazy there. A lot of people hated that stuff. I hated it too. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand what they were doing.
It's so mean to Rusev. Why are they being so needlessly, constantly mean to Rusev?
Yeah.
I feel he forgot to shake somebody's hand 2 years ago, and he's still paying for it.
No, actually, I think it was for the fact that he cut his hair without telling Vince McMahon, and that was one of the things, because he cut his hair, and Vince flipped out about it and was just he lost his shit, and that's what happened. So in a way, Rusev got punished there, but Rusev, man, he was starting to get over with the Rusev Day stuff, and they put a stop to it. Why?
Yeah. I think it's weird. It's very weird that they say that they are the best, they're the best wrestling organization in the world, they try to paint themselves as being like the top dogs of everything. We're the best, we're the best, we're the best. But yet they have talent that they treat like garbage. And it's like, well, are you actually the best if this guy is being treated this way? Like, if you don't take him seriously, why are we supposed to take him and by extension the rest of your product seriously? Like, why,
Right.
And I also don't agree with the concept of like squash matches. Like, if like you're supposed to be the best of the best of the best to be on WWE, and yet they'll pull in some random guy from whatever city they happen to be in and let somebody squash him. And it's like, I don't understand why. And not to say that it's not awesome that guy gets to go be on TV. Like, good for him. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people who have gone through and been part of the No Way Jose Conga line or whatever. Like, good for them. But at the same time, like, isn't this supposed to be where all of the top talent lives? Why does this person get a spot when you have like your roster is like 70 people deep, and there's people that I haven't seen in months? Like, what are you doing with those poor people? Like, why are you? I don't know if Tyler Breeze and Fandango are still doing anything. Actually, I haven't seen them in forever.
Actually, I believe that they've actually Tyler Breeze he went back to NXT, him and Fandango, and he's been doing stuff with NXT and actually, believe it or not, 205 Live. He's done a little bit with now.
Is that still a thing?
Yeah, 205 Live. Believe it or not, Rissa, it comes on Friday nights after SmackDown.
Really?
It does. Yeah, it does. It does. There for a while, I was watching it, and 205 Live actually got better for the fact that Vince dropped out of being creative with it because, and guess who he handed it over to? Triple H. He handed it over to Triple H, and last year, I was telling David C. Russell, I was watching SmackDown one night. This is back before they went to Fox, and they moved to Fox and everything. They were still on USA. They advertised, I think it was Cedric Alexander, it was Cedric Alexander versus Buddy Murphy for the Cruiserweight Championship, the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. And they were advertising. I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to tune into 205 Live. I haven't watched it forever, but this I followed Buddy Murphy back when he was doing NXT when it was Murphy and Blake, and I was glad to see him move up into somewhere from NXT to 205 Live, SmackDown, or whatever it was going to be. But 205 Live, I'm like, okay, and I was watching the vignettes with it too, and they were cutting promos back and forth, and it kind of it hooked me. So I turned on the network after SmackDown that night, and I sat there on my couch and I watched SmackDown. It was on probably about an hour. They had some matches, and then the last 30 minutes of 205 Live was the Cedric Alexander versus Buddy Murphy. Damn, some great fucking wrestling. I said to myself, this is not the 205 Live that I stopped watching a year ago when it got silly with the jokes and the cheesy stuff. I said, they don't know what to do with the cruiserweights. I'm not watching this shit no more. I come back a year later and I watch it, and everything they had, it was almost like a mini NXT and with more wrestling. And I said to myself, those guys put everything out on the damn line. I was impressed. I was impressed with it, and it was one hell of a match between those two there. I told David, and David said, 205 Live, it's not that. I said, dude, you got to watch it. I said, it's wrestling. Wrestling has.
Yeah, but like I didn't even know it was still a thing. Like, they don't advertise it. I haven't heard anything about it. I haven't heard storylines. I haven't heard names. Like, it's basically like it's being ignored. And I think that probably has something to do with Vince just not caring about it anymore. It's a double-edged sword. Like, you don't want him being involved because the product's going to suffer. But if he's not remotely interested in it, then the product's not going to get advertised.
Right.
So
right.
It's tough. You gotta find like the Goldilocks zone of Vince involvement if you want the product to do well without him actually getting too involved in like the at the micro level with actual storylines and things like that. Like
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Like that's crazy. If WWE acted like a real Fortune 500 company, that would not be tolerated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if they had a board of directors that was worth a damn, which I don't even know if they have a board. I don't know how their structure is at all.
I think they do. I think they do have.
I think they must. But like I feel like if they had a board that was worth a damn, they would be like, Vince, go away, because every business is supposed to change with the times, and WWE, and by extension the rest of the industry in general, suffers from a general malady of when paying your dues goes too far, where it's like always defer to the oldest person in the room or the person who's been here the longest, always defer to whoever has the most experience, always you're always got to be paying your dues, you should always be listening to your elders. And it's like, that's great, but there comes a time when you become too old to be relevant anymore.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock, it's not a diss.
Right.
But there comes a time where you are now too old to possibly connect with the newer generations of fans. And the older generations of fans aren't ever going to go anywhere anyway. Like, they're really not. There's very few wrestling fans that I know that are older generation that have been watching since the beginning who are just like, I'll never watch wrestling again. I don't even recognize it anymore. Like, people whine about it. But they're still going to watch. They're still going to watch the pay-per-views and stuff like that. Like, there's nothing wrong with the industry updating and changing to reflect what, wrestling evolves like everything else does. And when you have a person like Vince just squashing everything new that's coming along that he happens to disagree with, you end up looking foolish as an entire organization. And that's how WWE has looked for a really long time. And I'm not saying anything new here. Well, most fans who are more than just like a casual pay-per-view watcher would agree that the product is not great anymore, because peak Vince was 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Like, he hasn't been awesome for decades now.
Yeah,
and
he has.
You can't tell him that because he's not in touch with the same reality that the rest of us are. Yeah. And that's why I think that, like, in this industry, when you have people making the calls who have been making the calls for 40 years, this is partially what's responsible for it taking so long for women's wrestling to be taken seriously. It's responsible for, at least partly, for wrestlers who are from the queer community being taken as seriously as performers. Like, it's when you have people who just want to fall back on the same way of doing things that they've been relying on for 30, 40 years, you're going to get a stale product no matter what you do. Like, there's,
right. Right.
I'm not saying that young people are inherently better, because they're absolutely not. But there's got to be a little bit more meat in the middle, because otherwise the result is WWE, which no one's happy with.
Exactly. I get that. I agree with everything you say, because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to change with the times. And
you have to.
With Vince not being a part of that and having his involvement with it now, Triple H took 205 Live and he put it underneath the NXT umbrella, because he is featuring, through the week, he's featuring cruiserweights on there. He's even having cruiserweight championship matches on there now. The cruiserweight championship got renamed to the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. So he's taken 205 Live and put it in that in the NXT where more people are tuning in now because of everything that they're doing with after SmackDown. Yeah, they're still having 205 Live, but it's for, I don't know how you would say what it's for, but NXT, they've been since they've been on USA Network every Wednesday night going head to head with AEW. They've featured cruiserweights on there. They featured cruiserweight championship matches, and it's been pretty good. Because having 205 Live in the NXT category and underneath that in that umbrella there gives these guys more of a chance and stuff when they do NXT live events. I'm not surprised if they bring out the 205 Live cruiserweights. They bring them along. You'd be at an NXT live event, like I've seen plenty of them here in Daytona. I wouldn't be surprised if I went to one here in Daytona and I'm sitting there and all of a sudden, damn, the NXT Cruiserweight Champion is here. It's like, dude, no freaking way. I just seen him last week on TV in a title defense. That's what I think is good because they're
it's forward thinking on their part as well, just because they're going up against AEW, and AEW doesn't make distinctions between cruiserweights and whatever because they know that good talent is good talent, and they're willing to take risks on talent that WWE can't possibly take.
Right.
Like WWE has gotten to a point where they've painted themselves into a corner where they've spent so much time making it seem as though size is the most important factor that they are now not only missing out on really great talent that's going elsewhere, but they're also making themselves seem as though if they started really promoting that talent, it wouldn't make any sense to the WWE fan. The way that they've been conditioned as fans, it's that like the little guy is comically little. Yeah. When realistically, it's like, okay, but it's wrestling. It's your actual physical size is only one component of all the different things you need to be good at what you do.
Exactly.
So for them to go back on that now, they can't. So they're kind of stuck at the moment.
Exactly.
So
they can't really do anything. They can't really do anything. They've painted themselves in the corner. One thing I have to mention is that they really did paint themselves in the corner because next month they're having the Elimination Chamber, and they've not announced they've done no tournament like for the women's Elimination Chamber.
Mm-hmm.
They've done no tournaments on who's going to get in there, who's not. It's like, well, here's who's going to be in there, and this is what they're going to be doing. And the winner's going after Becky Lynch's Raw Women's Championship. Shayna Baszler's in there. And, of course, she's going to be facing Becky at WrestleMania. That's what I hate now. It's so damn predictable. It's like, why?
Holographic.
Yeah. Why put her through this? It's like, okay, we'll throw this out here, and then we got to get to Mania. It's build a good story towards Mania.
Right.
Last year, Becky Lynch, I thought she had one hell of an amazing story last year from Royal Rumble all the way up to her WrestleMania moment. I thought that was like the greatest thing that I seen for that year for someone's career to flourish like that.
And she mainly the way by all accounts she kind of did it despite WWE because WWE wasn't supporting her.
Yeah, they wanted
kind of just went rogue, and it happened to work for her. And then you can tell when they're attempting to harness that because it starts to seem a little bit inauthentic. So you can always tell when they're like, "Oh, do your the man thing," and she's like, "Man, let me keep doing what I'm doing here. Like, let me do what I'm doing because that's what worked." No, none of them want to admit that a story, like a good story, could come from anybody but them.
Yeah.
And realistically, it should be much more collaborative than that. Because who knows their character better than the wrestler that portrays that character?
Exactly.
This is not like traditional writing. This is not like a sitcom or a drama where there are writers and there are the actors and the two don't necessarily get to collaborate with each other, or maybe they do. Like, this should be much more collaborative, and I think that seems to me to be a little bit more of what's happening in AEW.
Yeah.
So it feels a little bit more, I don't know, intentional. Like, it feels more like connected. I don't know.
Yeah.
They seem they seem like sometimes with WWE you can see like the cracks, and you can like when Rusev is forced to do the things that Rusev is forced to do, like you can see.
Mhm.
You can kind of tell that he's not happy with this.
Whereas
AEW, everybody seems like they understand what they're doing and they're all on the same page about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can see the talent being happy or not happy with what they're given, and I've enjoyed AEW and the Wednesday Night War. It's been great because it kind of reminds me of the Monday Night War back in the day when that happened and stuff. I love the Monday Night Wars. Now seeing the Wednesday Night Wars with NXT and AEW, you have people that love NXT. They're like, yeah, NXT. And then you got the AEW, like, yeah, AEW. And then when one brand, when like Raw or SmackDown or even NXT does something, or especially Raw or SmackDown, AEW people are like, what the hell, that sucks. And then the WWE people's like, look at the AEW people, and they look at the AEW fan base, and they're like, look at those morons. It's like, you call that wrestling, and they're going back and forth. It's like the old, remember back during the Monday Night Wars with Nitro? When Nitro, you have people have the signs on there. It's like, Vince sucks. WWE sucks. Raw sucks. Raw sucks. And then on Raw, you have like Nitro sucks. It's just that right there. It's like, okay, this guy don't like Nitro. All right, cool. Okay, hey, let's get over on Nitro. Hey, this guy hates Raw. Okay, whatever. But now with everything years later, you get social media and stuff. It's just like, just going back and forth. It's like CM Punk said at StarCast last year. Sit back and enjoy it. You get to watch it all for free. He said that. It's like you get to sit back and watch all this great content for free. Just enjoy the content. You like it, you like it. You don't, then change the channel. Watch something else.
There's finally some actual competition. There's finally options again.
Yes. Speaking of competition, WWE just put up a documentary thing on I watched the first 2 episodes, and I'm waiting them to add more because I watched them over the weekend, and it's called Ruthless Aggression. They're talking about the Ruthless Aggression era. You remember that right after the Attitude Era, after the Monday Night Wars?
Vaguely. There was times when I was like blissfully unaware of what was going on in wrestling.
The ruthless aggression era, right after Vince bought WCW, and you got all this talent, and then they had that failed invasion angle where a lot of people were waiting to see Hogan at the NWO and Goldberg and Flair, and then those guys still had to wait out their contract for a whole year. And a year later, they showed up after the failed invasion. What WWE got was all this mid-card jobbers that was left over that just wanted an opportunity. And a lot of them they kept, and then some of them they just said goodbye. But the thing is, during when it was at the beginning of the Ruthless Aggression era, then a lot of people were asking, where do we go now? We've took out the competition. What do we do? It's like, okay, we got all this talent. We got this X amount of talent, and we got this X amount of talent. What do we do? Hey, you wrestle for Raw, you wrestle for SmackDown. We'll split it, and we'll compete within ourselves. And that's what happened. And they talk about that during that time. They're like, they even talk about the start of John Cena, Batista, Brock Lesnar, all coming, Randy Orton, coming around during that time before they were like hitting it big. And yeah, the first episode talks about the start of that. The second episode focuses on John Cena when he came out and he was trying to find his way with the
when he was a white rapper.
Yeah, that I didn't know this
The
stuff.
white rapper from Massachusetts.
Yeah. My younger brother liked the Dr. Thugonomics, the Thugonomics gimmick, because I remember I saw, and I've said this story plenty of times, Risa. I saw John Cena back in at a house show at 2002 when he was the Prototype, and
right, I remember hearing about that was the thing that they, what? Yeah, just a series of bad decisions.
Yeah, I mean, hey, he took what he was given and he ran with it. You know, you got to give the guy credit there. But the thing that happened was when at the house show there, he was booing and he was getting booed at and everything, and he was in the ring trying his heart out. And my little brother was like, "This guy sucks." And I look at him and I said, "Dude," I said, "give the guy a chance. For all you know, within the next 3 years, he could be a big star." And he's like, "Yeah, right." 3 years later, he blows up big. But Cena, I mean, when he first came out on SmackDown there after coming up from OEW, they even talked to him during the second episode, and they asked him ruthless aggression, and he said he blew his first shot. He blew it, and he explained why. Because when he came out, he made a big impact, but he didn't carry it, and a lot of people are like, he's just a wrestler, wearing tights and everything. He didn't have a character, and then he found that character when he was on the European tour, because they were gonna fight. He was on the chopping block. They were like, after this tour, you're gone. And he was on a European tour, and he was sitting on the bus, and like Big Show and Rey Mysterio and some other people are in the back freestyling. So Cena was like, okay, and he goes back there and he starts freestyling and stuff, and he had the whole back laughing and everything and stuff. And then Stephanie was on the bus, Stephanie McMahon, and when they were getting out the bus, she said, "What was that you just did?" And he's like, "What?" He's like, "What was that you just did?" And he's like, "I freestyled." And she's like, "How come you can't do that on camera? How would you like to be able to do that?" And he was like, "Hell yeah." And she was like, "Here," it handed him a can of tuna that she had. She's like, "Can you rap about this?"
Wow.
Off the top of your head. And so right there on the spot, he rapped about tuna and taking a jet flight back to wherever they're going. And then basically he ran with it from there. He was given an opportunity, man.
That's pretty impressive, though.
Yeah, because they were gonna get rid of him. It's like, nah, you're done. You're too vanilla. And people are like, yeah, I heard John Cena, the vanilla wrestler at the beginning there before the Thugonomics.
I mean, he's one of the best people on the mic, and a lot of people. I remember for a long, long time, it was real popular to make fun of John Cena, but like. It's John Cena. He's not for you. He's for America and kids and, special needs fans and, like, very, very old fans. Like, he's not there for the people who want to see, they're stone cold type people and they're, like, bad guys that they love to hate or that they love to love and whatever. Like, they crafted him perfectly into that specific brand ambassador kind of character, and it worked. And you can talk trash on him all you want to, but the guy is so good on the mic now. Like, he walks, he hasn't been around in months. He's been making movies, whatever. He's coming back, next week or something? They said he was going to, this week or next week, he's going to come back. He's going to go out there and just poop on somebody.
Yeah.
Because that's what he does. He comes back to visit, and someone comes out, and they challenge him, and they're like, oh, it'll probably be the guy with the guitar again or something.
Elias.
Yeah, like coming out and being like, oh, you got to get out of here, old timer, go back to Hollywood. And he will poop on him because he's so good. He's so good. So whatever, like people, it's really fun to be able to, like Captain America is not necessarily anybody's favorite Marvel character.
Yeah.
Because he's a little generic, you know what I mean? But like just the same thing as like Superman. Like a lot of people are like, how am I supposed to identify with Superman?
Right.
So everybody's like, oh, Batman, he's he's hurt and he's angry and he's whatever and he's like a badass, and it's like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
But like, what would you do if there wasn't a John Cena character? Like where would the moral compass of that group of people be if you don't have John Cena's character to pivot all of those characters around? And
right.
to get, like, without him, there's no context for who's good and who's bad. Like, you reduce the product to a bunch of super extreme gestures when all you really needed was one guy to be the center.
Yeah.
And it really bothers me that they went the wrong way with Bayley, because I think that he should have passed the torch to her. I think Bayley was she was poised to be the next John Cena. It would have been great for her to be a female version of John Cena, where little boys and little girls both gravitate toward her. That would have been very progressive, but not in a way that would have also been particularly shocking. And instead they were like, Bayley's getting a haircut and she's a jerk now. Like, I feel like that was so incredibly short-sighted and unnecessary of them to do. That's another thing that I'm just like, I don't even want to watch now.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch because she's bad now. All my hope is lost.
Yeah. It got me after I watched bits and pieces of Raw last night, and when they announced it's no qualifying. Here's your elimination chamber women's that's going to be in the match, and you got Shayna Baszler there sticking out like a sore thumb. You're like, yeah, she's going to win and get on to WrestleMania and stuff, but
yeah.
I just some of the stuff I'm just like kind of scratching my head about with though. But one thing I'm always interested in each year is the Hall of Fame. They already announced earlier this year the NWO and Batista. I heard today that, and I was reading about that, they talked about for this year, there are going to be two names. And I'm glad they're putting one of them in, is the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, is going into the Hall of Fame. That's
good.
That's big
No,
talks.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And then there's also talks of JBL going into the Hall of Fame, too, because he's pretty much done with wrestling. JBL is, because he's...
I don't know. I think JBL's kind of a jerk. Put him... put him in there, I guess, or whatever, but, like, he, there was that whole thing where he was, like, bullying Mauro Ranallo.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing, too, is, like, doesn't WWE have an anti-bullying campaign?
Yeah.
And you're going to put that guy in the Hall of Fame? You're going to put the bully in the Hall of Fame? Like, come on. But,
yeah.
That makes sense that they wouldn't put him in. So of course they're going to do the polar opposite of that, because that's what they do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad that he's in NXT, and Triple H is like, hey, you're letting this guy go. This guy is the best thing that we've had in this company for a long time. I'll take him. So he took him. He took him, and I'm glad, because this guy can make a match a vanilla match sound like it's freaking like fantastic, man. He puts so much emotion and raw power behind what he's calling for each match. Yep. Why? I mean, how could you go wrong with that? How could you go
he's
wrong with
he's 100% committed to whatever match he's calling. He's giving it his all, and I think that's, I mean, especially because of this whole Raw and SmackDown thing, where it's like, guess what? Corey Graves, he's always the jerk now, and like, it's, I don't know. I don't honestly like want the commentators to have their own private drama that only I, as the person watching on TV, can hear. Like, it bothers me that the live event of the show and the televised version are such completely different experiences depending on which one of those if you're sat in front of your TV or if you're sat at the show. Like, you're not hearing any of that commentary.
Yeah.
There's this whole other little sub angle going on, and it's not particularly interesting. Like, do you want to listen to an old couple argue with each other, bickering?
Yeah.
Like, it's not entertaining. I don't know why they do it.
Yeah.
I have no idea why they're like, oh, this will be good. Hey, Corey, be a jerk off. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
To me with commentary, and that's something that, like, the last time I talked to you was when on Deathmatch Russell podcast with David C. Russell. You're ring announcing, and when I looked up on your Facebook there, I seen it was commentary. I was like, what? I was like, this is great. This is great. I wanted to ask you how that happened. How did you get in from ring announcing info into commentary, and how have you found your own style and rhythm with your commentary? How did that happen?
It's hard to say, just because depending on who I'm with, when you have another person doing commentary with you, you're creating that rhythm together. It's not something that I can do singularly and be like, this is how it's going to go, unless I had a fixed agenda and I wanted to be really forceful about it for some reason or another.
Uh-huh.
So I started, I think the first time I did commentary was for Modern Vintage Wrestling.
Okay.
And I think that the owner kind of brought me in there because they were they had 3 commentators, and one of them I think had to drop out, so they had kind of an open slot anyway, and they're like, well, we don't want it to just be men's voices. That might make it a little bit difficult for people to tell who's who.
Right.
We need to break it up a little bit. So I think that I was brought in kind of just literally because my voice sounds different. And it was like, well, let's just see how this goes. And the two guys, Matt Mengel and Josh Chernoff, they have known each other for like 15 years or something. They've been talking to each other and, bickering and trading barbs and jabs and stuff for a very long time. So it's a little hard for me to get a word in edgewise, but they're very, it's not like a, don't let her say anything kind of thing. It's just they have their own rhythm.
Right. Right.
So I did get like a couple whatever clips in or something, and then I ended up doing it for WSU. I don't remember how that happened. I kind of was just like, hey, do you want someone to talk to you? And so I started doing commentary. And then the last time I went and did a show over at Super Crazy, I was informed when I got there that I would be doing commentary, just because the sound guy had bought more microphones. So it's kind of just like, hey, good thing you're here. We got you an extra microphone. Now when you come back from the ring, you can continue to speak into a microphone, just a different one. So it's very much just because Chio upgraded his system.
Wow.
So that's, just very haphazardly blundering into commentary for the most part. But I mean, I'm also like, I did a morning talk radio show for a couple of years. I know how to talk, and I know how to interview people, and I know how to get some kind of a banter going back and forth with another person. Like, talking to yourself can be a little bit difficult, but as long as I have one other person, I will make them talk to me. So you just kind of got to be relentless with it. So I haven't been doing it with enough consistency with any one person that I feel like I have like a groove, really. I feel like every time I do it, it's a little bit different, and it's always going to be a little bit off the wall.
Uh-huh.
But I also don't know, like I'm not an encyclopedia of wrestling knowledge. Like, I don't know the names of moves and stuff. So I'm always going to be more of like the color commentator than the play-by-play kind of person. I'm always, because, and also just because I'm genuinely, the same thing with Mauro Ranallo, where you can tell that he's just incredibly excited about the action that he's calling. I'm very similar in that regard, where I'm genuinely excited to be there. I'm amazed by what I'm seeing. I still appreciate wrestling. I still recognize the talent. I still care about it. So I kind of rely on my own enthusiasm to kind of get me connected to whoever's listening.
Okay. That I love it. I love it. I think it's great. Yeah, because you gotta have that person, and yeah, just depending on who's with you, of course, and it's commentary. I enjoy that part when I'm watching, depending on what I'm watching and stuff. NXT commentary, I love Mauro Ranallo. I love that stuff. With Raw, when they brought in Tom Phillips, I think Tom Phillips is great. He's doing commentary. You got Tom Phillips, Jerry Lawler, and I believe Brian Saxton. I liked Tom Phillips and Brian Saxton. I thought they did really good together. But there for a while they had, I think it was like Nick, I forget the guy's name. He was doing commentary on 205 Live. They brought him in on Raw, and I just didn't feel it was right. They moved Tom Phillips over to NXT UK, and he was doing commentary at Nigel McGuinness there. I'm like, really? I was like, why is not Tom Phillips on Monday Night Raw? I want to hear him. He should be the guy taking Michael Cole's spot, because Michael Cole and Corey Graves is now just doing on SmackDown because Fox wanted Cole and Graves. They got him.
Right.
Okay, what do we do with Raw now? Okay, let's put whatever his name is, Vic, whatever. In.
I don't remember.
It just didn't feel right. And when they moved Tom Phillips in, I was like, good choice, because he is good in that role there. He is good in that role. I like him better than Michael Cole, I hate to say, because Michael Cole at the times, Michael Cole has just gotten to me with some of the stuff he says. And then Corey, it feels like to me he's trying too hard. And then, of course, I can understand when you got someone yelling in your ear, it gets a little bit bad when you're trying to get something across. But my favorite commentary teams would have to be Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan, and then Gorilla Monsoon with Jesse Ventura back in the 80s. And then in the 90s, JR and Jerry Lawler. Those are my favorite commentary teams right there.
See, I can't handle Jerry Lawler. He drives me up the wall, man. I hate the sound of his voice. I hate that he's constantly gearing up to make the worst possible jokes. Like, I remember watching a show, and he was about to make, like, an inappropriate, like, cringeworthy joke about, like, oh, I want to marry her or something, which, like, don't talk about a female wrestler and say you want to marry her. You're essentially being like, she's not a wrestler. She is just a woman I wish I was having sex with. Like, that's what you mean when you say, oh, she's a knockout. Oh, I'd like to marry her or whatever. Like, that's what you're actually saying. Like, you're detracting from the fact that she's a performing athlete. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he was, like, trying to make this joke. Somebody interrupted him, and then he, like, went back and, like, reset it up so he could finish telling the joke. It's like, bro, you were stopped. You were stopped. Like, oh, it drives me crazy. I'm sure he used to be good, but now he's kind of just, like, he shouldn't be. Certain people shouldn't be allowed to talk anymore. And Jerry Lawler is one of them, in my opinion. I don't know. He grates on me. He's like my commentary Jared Leto. Like he's that guy to me.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's a lovely person. I don't know. I've never met him. I'm sure he's a swell guy. I very much appreciated the whole thing that he did back in the day with Andy Kaufman, and how they kind of
that's
brought wrestling out onto like the world stage, and we're like, oh, what is it? Is it real? Is it not real? What's going on? Like, I think that was really cool, and he was a good sport about that. I don't ever want to hear him on commentary, and I don't ever want to see him wearing his like Ed Hardy shirts. Like, you're 30 years too old to be wearing those shirts. Like, don't wear a t-shirt on TV. Don't wear a t-shirt on TV. You're on TV. Put on a suit. Come on. Put on a shirt with buttons on it. Come on. Take one for the team and buy a button-down shirt. Dear God.
That is crazy. That's great though. But I like the commentary team on AEW. I like JR and Tony Schiavone, two of the main voices you heard during the Monday Night Wars. And then of course you got I like you got Excalibur right there in the middle there. And I think Excalibur is starting to improve a little bit better with this commentary, being around Jerry and Tony, because they've called a lot of great matches in their career.
He's kind of getting a crash course.
Yeah, he's getting a crash course. But I still like how Jim Cornette's like, yeah, I like Excalibur, but you need to take off that damn mask. I just love it.
Yeah, okay.
I don't take Cornette serious. A lot of people get all...
I don't either.
Yeah, they get all bent and twisted up. I mean...
Like old, it's like that Simpsons newspaper article where it's like old man angry yells at cloud or something like that. It's like, you can count on a cranky person like Jim Cornette to be cranky and say cranky stuff. Like, he's never not going to do that. Why do you care?
Yeah.
Why does it matter what he's saying?
Yeah.
If you don't like what he's saying, like, don't take him seriously. There's a bunch of people that I'm just not going to listen to them. They can say whatever they want. I don't care. And I think a lot of people forget that they don't have to care if they don't want to.
Exactly.
That's kind of a continual problem with people, is that they feel as though they should be upset about things. And it's like, all right, but check your actual emotions. Do you really even care? Is it worth your time? Do you need to comment on it? Do you need to be upset about it? Like, do you have to share it in an effort just to make yourself seem like better than somebody else? Like, or can you just like not care?
Exactly.
I don't know.
I get it. Yeah, just don't. He brings heat on himself, and I believe he does that on purpose.
Of course he does. He's a troll. He is a troll. And everybody who gets all up in arms about the things that he says, he's either too out of touch to know that that's what he's doing. Like, he's either too out of touch to know that he's being kind of a douche, or he's trying to get a rise out of people so that he will remain in the conversation. Yeah. And like, don't invite him to the party then. Just don't invite him. Don't feed the troll. If you don't like what he's saying, don't share posts and talk about how outraged you are, because all you're doing is giving him the publicity that he wants. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my father, I remember back in the day, my father, man, he'd yell at the TV, and me and my brother would be laughing because there's Midnight Express, and of course Jim Cornette come out with that racket and stuff. My dad jump up, and he's like, I can't stand fucking Jim Cornette. I want to take that tennis racket, and I'm going to shove it up his ass. He just... But that's the mark of a great heel. Yeah. He's doing exactly what he needed to do. But some people don't remember that in real life you don't have to be a face or a heel. You get to have the full spectrum of the human experience and be, an actual genuine human being. And I think that Jim Cornette has relied so long on being that outspoken guy that the personality he used to play has supplanted his actual personality, and now he's just this grumpy pain in the ass. Which is fine. Right. Go be a grumpy pain. I have a bunch of, everybody's got an uncle like Jim Cornette. Exactly. Everybody's got that uncle who you get a couple drinks in him, and he's absolutely a pain in the ass. But you know what? You just let him tire himself out. Right. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. All right, Uncle Jim. Okay, Uncle Jim. Whatever you say, Uncle Jim. That's how you deal with that. Yeah, he's just, it's just, people should not just take everything that he says seriously. And he just says he speaks his mind, and that's it. And people get all bent out of shape about it, and he don't care. And that's Jim Cornette. I had this conversation at an AEW show. I was standing in line here when they came to Daytona Beach, and
there's a person in front of me. Oh, I can't stand Jim Cornette. And I said, oh, really? Oh, yeah, because it's just going on. And I said, don't take it seriously. I said, Jim Cornette says what he wants when he wants. He's been doing it going on for years. Oh, he has? It's like, yeah, I was a little boy when all this stuff going on. I said, my daddy broke, if I can remember, he broke 2 TVs because of Jim Cornette and Ric Flair in his house. He threw them out in the front yard. That's how passionate my dad was about wrestling. So
that's good heel work right there.
Yeah. so I'm telling people, don't take this guy seriously. Just don't take him seriously. He's doing it to get out of Rise, and this is who he is. And
he's been doing it for years and years and years, and it worked for him for so long. What, he's going to stop doing it now? Of course he's not going to stop doing it now.
Exactly. I met him about 2 years ago in Orlando, Florida, and when I was talking to him, he was pretty cool, just talking to him about just wrestling. And then when he went up to go do a Q&A, it's like, boom, he switched gears, and he flipped the switch, and it's like, who is this guy?
Mm-hmm.
It's like when I was talking to him, like, who is this guy? It's like, you look like Jim Cornette. You don't sound really like Jim Cornette. And then when he got up in front of a camera and a microphone, boom, there he is, right there.
Yep.
That's the guy. I was like, when at that moment, I was like, I get it. And then you get people who can't see that, and they're just like, he's like, Jim Cornette. It's like, shut up. Don't take him seriously. But great heel. You mentioned great heels. What do you prefer? Heel commentary or face?
Commentary?
Yeah, commentary.
I want there to be face commentary at all times. I don't think it's necessary to have heel commentary.
No, like
not really. I mean, because if the heel in the ring is doing their job correctly, you don't need a commentator to back that up.
No,
you know what I mean? They've already done their manager or whatever, whoever goes out into the ring and cuts that promo being an awful person, the commentary team needs to reinforce how awful that was, not normalize it. That takes away from it. So if Charlotte Flair comes out and she just says awful, rotten stuff, as she sometimes does, and then Corey Graves is like, oh, well, of course, and she's the queen and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you're taking the sting and the bite out of how mean that promo just was. By not being flabbergasted and appalled and whatever, you're cueing the audience to make them think, oh, that's not so bad. Somebody is agreeing. An authority figure with a microphone who's talking to me, whether or not I want to listen to them, is saying that that's not actually a bad thing. And it's like, this is why we have fake news and facts that aren't facts. Like that kind of, you know what I mean? It's almost like,
right.
That commentator is trying to alter reality, and that shouldn't be the job of a commentator to do, to take away from how bad the heel actually is. Like, you're not ever supposed to agree with I don't know. I don't think anybody should openly agree with the heel unless it's part of an angle for them to do so. And until there are angles with commentators, which I hope there are not, because I think that that's silly, like every once in a while, Randy Orton will go up to Michael Cole and RKO him or something. Like, that's one thing, but
yeah.
I don't, commentators should not be part of actual angles. That's the only instance in which I could see it being appropriate for there to be a heel commentator.
Right.
Otherwise, you basically need somebody to call out the names of the moves. You need somebody to be properly excited and helping the crowd or the viewer or the listener or whatever also be excited about what they're seeing. Like, you should be enhancing the action. You shouldn't be enhancing the reputation and the standing of a bad guy. I've never thought that makes any sense.
Okay.
You're essentially, I don't know, you're either making the bad guy seem not so bad because you're agreeing with him and you're an authority figure,
uh-huh.
or That like that's best case scenario. That's what you're doing. Worst case scenario, you have children listening to you, and you're telling them that like it's okay to be a really bad person. And like there's a lot of child viewers.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be any character on there who's normalizing awful behavior. Like I'm not a parent. If I were a parent and I had kids old enough that they were watching wrestling and they're constantly listening to Corey Graves talk about how great the bad guy is, like I wouldn't want my children thinking that like Seth Rollins is a nice guy or a good, you know what I mean? Like, because that's not reality. That's not the lesson that's being taught.
Right.
So I think it contradicts the broader lesson of good versus evil, and good eventually always prevails, because that's the fundamental story of wrestling. So why you would create that general story and then pee on your own story, it doesn't make any sense to me.
I get it. Yeah, it wouldn't. One of the best, I'd have to say, one of the best lines I heard from a commentary would have to be the barbershop incident with Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty during Brutus the Beefcake's barbershop, where Shawn Michaels, he turns on Marty Jannetty of the Rockers. The Rockers break up. He super kicks him. And then he grabs Jannetty and he throws him through the window of the barbershop there. And Gorilla Monsoon says, "Brain," I'm talking about Bobby Heenan, "Brain, did you see that?" He's like, can you believe what Shawn Michaels just did?" Something along the lines there. And I laugh. Bobby the Brain Heenan says, he's like, "Yeah, I can't believe it, Monsoon. You seen that coward Jannetty? He jumped through the window." He jumped through the window. It's like Shawn Michaels put him through the window. But Bobby Heenan said, "Yeah, it's like, I can't believe that coward Jannetty. He put him through the Jannetty just jumped through the window instead of Shawn Michaels."
I mean, I'm not saying that heel commentary is not entertaining. Sometimes it absolutely is.
And like in an instant, for that instant right there, I just laugh my butt off of every time I hear that. I think it's great. I love it. I love it too. But your commentary and ring announcing, I mentioned earlier, watching the highlight of your ring announcing. I love it. And one thing I noticed out of that video that I watched was you getting to announce to the ring a legend like Greg the Hammer Valentine, Tito Santana. I thought that was great. I'm like, wow. How often can you say a person gets to announce a legend, like a couple legends like that, to the ring? I thought,
and they are like by far the nicest people, because they've been around for so long that they've probably gone through the cycles of like getting too famous to the point where they're not comfortable, and then like eventually that fame dies down and maybe there's like some bitterness there, and then and then they get built back up over time because people remember the contributions that they made. So like they've gone through such emotional journeys to get to the point where they are, that like by the time I'm blessed enough to be able to announce them in the ring, they're rock solid and steady and just enjoying the experience now. And that's really great to see. It's like people like that, it's almost like wrestling sometimes does have a happily ever after. Sometimes there are tragedies and people taken away from us too soon, and that's really unfortunate, and unfortunately it's also all too common. But for some people there is kind of like a light at the end of that tunnel where they can kind of come out the other side and be able to continue to go around and see all the fans who still love and admire and appreciate them.
Exactly. One thing I'd like to ask you is any advice for someone who's starting out doing commentary and ring announcing. What advice would you give someone?
I think it's important if you're an actual serious wrestling fan and you care enough about it that you want to do some kind of, either commentary or ring announcing or whatever. I think that you gotta try to get involved with your local wrestling organization. So if that means you go to the local wrestling school, maybe you don't enroll there as a wrestling student because wrestling itself is actually, very hard and difficult and whatever.
Right.
But if you show up and you say, like, I would like to be involved in some capacity, and you don't have a problem with, sweeping up floors and, picking up chairs and whatever, like, that goes a long way. Paying your dues is kind of the number one rule of wrestling. And a lot of people know that. You never stop paying your dues. The person that's been there the longest is the same person that's also helping to break down the ring after a show. If you are too cool to do any of that stuff, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Like, I have helped take down and put away rings. That's not something you grow out of. That's something you have to be prepared to do every time.
Right.
Every time you're at a show, you have to be prepared to help them take down the ring. If there aren't enough people, you're enough people. Go help out. So if the people who have kind of an attitude, it's not going to cut it. Nobody thinks it's cute. It's tough because a lot of people get into wrestling and they're very young and they're very excited and they want to get involved or whatever, but there's a lot of that, like, teenage angst that maybe gets in the way a little bit, and you got to kind of put that aside, and you got to be okay with paying your dues and doing, it's the same thing as, like, being an intern, where it's like, okay, you may be studying at a really great college, but you still got to run out and get everybody coffee.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's fine. That doesn't mean that you're not worth anything or whatever. That means that you're willing to put in the time and and people respect that. You also should absolutely be coming up with ideas, brainstorming a persona, even if, I don't have to have, like, a serious in-depth character to do what I'm doing, but it's definitely not 100%. Like, I'm not walking in there and doing and saying whatever I feel like doing. You have to be intentional about these things. So
Right.
you should absolutely be putting in the time to develop a persona or a set of behaviors or whatever, like that. And that's not something that ever ends. That's not something you do once and then you eventually stop doing it. I know people who have been wrestling and have changed their gimmicks, like, multiple times over the course of, like, a couple of years, or they'll add on different characters, like, all right, I'm a little tired of doing this thing, I want to do, flippy jumpy kind of stuff, but this character doesn't really do that. I'm going to create an alternate character. So it's like, that's the great thing about wrestling, is that it's a creative outlet. So that's never a conversation you should stop having with yourself. You should constantly be thinking about, like, what kind of a character could I be? What's not out there right now? And what void is out there that hasn't been identified that I'm the person that can fill that properly? And also, in addition to doing, like, character work or whatever, like, you should be practicing. Put on WWE, put it on mute, get your buddies, do your own commentary over whatever show that you're watching.
Right.
I'm serious. Like, if you don't, because, I went to a university where I was lucky enough to study at a place that had a college radio station. So I got my experience live on the air on a real FM radio station.
Uh-huh.
Not everybody has access to that. If you don't have access to that, like, you do a podcast, you have to talk to people.
Yes.
Like, that's a great experience.
Yeah.
So, start a podcast, or at the very least, you and your buddies, if you're going to be watching Raw and SmackDown anyway, turn the sound off and make your own commentary.
Right.
Like, that practice. You have to actually practice, because your opportunity is never going to come when you think it is. It's never going to come when you expect it to. It's never going to be like this beautiful arc and it culminates in this magical moment that you have prepared for. It's always going to be somebody can't make it, but you're there.
Uh-huh.
that's when it's going to happen. So you can't possibly be prepared for that moment precisely. So what you can do in the meantime is get yourself ready, because when it's your time, when you get that opportunity, you don't want to seem like you have no idea what you're doing. So make yourself feel as comfortable as you can. Just do whatever you have to do to get some kind of a practice in. Because if you've never done it before and you're like, yeah, I think I can do it, and you bluff your way in, you're going to sound horrible. You're going to sound terrible. And a lot of people, you'd be surprised how many people just bluff their way in, and they're just like, yeah, I could probably do that. Like, probably do that?
Probably.
Have you ever tried it before at all? No? Oh, God.
I actually sat down and tried to do it one time, and it's not easy. It takes practice. Just like you said here, doing a podcast. If you listen to me when I first started out 3 years ago, I sounded like a deer in headlights. As time went on and progressed, everything got better. I got to the point to where I've actually done some interviews where I already know what I'm going to say up here, and I execute it, and then just add to the conversation when needed, and let them discuss and answer what I ask, and then they let me ask the questions, and it worked out great. No notes or no nothing. And I did that one night with a guest interview with I forgot who it was off the top of my head. I would have to go back and I'd be like, yeah, I remember that. No notes, and you wouldn't have known it. And David watched it because I was trying to help David out with being a better interviewer, helping with him, and he was like, "Man, that was great." I was like, "Yeah, that was a good interview, good guest, great guest, loved it." He's like, and then he asked, or I mentioned something about the questions, and I said something. I said, he was like, "Where'd you get your notes at?" I said, "What notes?" He was like, "Your notes you talk about all the time." I was like, "I had no notes for that." He's like, "What?" I was like, "Nope, I had no notes." He's like, "It seemed like you did." I was like, "Yeah, I pulled it off the top of here." "How'd you do that?" I said, I've been doing this since 2014. So after a while, after the last few years, you pick up a lot of things. And I said, you know what helps me out? Like you said, like for doing commentary, watching, listening to people, listening to a lot of podcasts, picking out different ones that stick out to me. I like how they talk. I like their style. I'm going to take some of this. I like this one. I like how they announce and deliver the questions and the reactions and everything. I'm going to take that. And you just throw it together. You throw it together on your own. You learn how to talk. It's like stuttering all the time. That was just bad. Starting out back when I first started out. I asked a question. Oh
yeah, those are hard habits to break.
Just saying, the habits I've broke a lot in the last few years is saying I had a former co-host on with me back in the day, and when they would talk and I'd ask them a question, or I would ask them something, they would say, "Well, I think blah blah blah. Well, blah blah blah. I just was like, I'm like, come on, man. And one of the rules is for me for doing podcasting is you stay away from certain rules. You've probably heard this too before doing commentary. You stay away from certain things to say, like what, yeah. Just you don't say that stuff because you just want everything to flow so natural. You just want everything to flow with podcasting. If I'm going to sit there and say, well, before I'm trying to think of something to ask you, I'm not going to sit there and go, well, I hate that. I've heard podcasts and episodes where they sit there and drag out one word. It's just, I just want to say, just cut it off right there. Just
But
cut
you
it
know
off.
what? It's hard because
It is.
You know,
It is.
some people are not paying that much attention, and they're just kind of winging it. And it's like, it's not for me to say what any one person's threshold should be for when they feel it's appropriate to wing it.
Yeah.
But winging it to me feels like know the rules before you break them, and a lot of people don't bother to really learn the rules, and it kind of you can tell. Like I can tell the people who've been doing it for a long time and the people who haven't. And some people have a little bit more of like a raw intuitive feel for it. Some people are just better at talking to other people. That doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have those bad habits, but they can kind of just power through them, and they feel comfortable.
Right.
But either way, like it's not as though like there's no real excuse to continue having bad habits and not be working on them. Like no one's going to be perfect the first time they do anything, of course.
Right.
But like even if you're not going to a communication program at a 4-year college, you can go online and buy like a Udemy course or like Khan Academy or any of the like Coursera. There's a bunch of online learning things now. You can wait until they're having a deal, buy a class for like $10, learn how to be a broadcaster. It's like it's not as though there are not resources out there for people.
Exactly.
If you can't be bothered to take the time to listen to the radio, listen to talk radio all day long, and just see what people are doing. Like if you can't study up on something, then maybe you're not really that passionate about it. So when the opportunities don't just come rolling in, it's because you're not putting it out there enough, because it's see-through that you're not really as into it as you could be. I think a lot of people, the younger people there's much more of the likelihood of there being kind of like a defense mechanism of it's like, maybe I'll go do commentary. Oh, well, like they never called me back, whatever. And it's like, okay, but is no the answer that you're satisfied with? Because, you keep asking long enough, somebody's going to say yes to you. Mm-hmm. But it's that persistence, and you need to have that. And if you will go away after one no, and your entire pitch and spiel hinged on getting that yes, and you don't immediately get it and the whole thing falls apart, maybe you're not ready, and that's okay. It's okay. It's also if you're not cut out for it right away and you're turned off to it and you don't want to do it, you also don't have to do it. Like no one's forcing you. It's all right. I've definitely tried to go for things and then been like, all right, this isn't what I thought it was. I'm going to regroup. Maybe I'll go back to it at some point. Maybe I won't. Like, that's very normal. Yeah. That's so normal, and that's totally fine. But that said, don't just immediately be like, well, I didn't get a yes, or I didn't get a call back, or I didn't get immediate validation that I wasn't vulnerable for no good reason. That's what it really is. It's about vulnerability.
Right.
Like if you crumble that fast, that's something that not just for the express purposes of getting involved in wrestling in some way, but like just for you, that's something that you should work on. Mm-hmm. Like you don't want to be that kind of person who just hears no one time and then slinks off to a corner and mopes around. Like no one wants to be that person. And I think if more people recognized their own behaviors and why maybe they kind of make those knee-jerk reactions, people would be able to overcome that stuff easier. Mm-hmm. They're lucky, though. Generation Z, all the young people coming up now, because I'm officially not the youngest generation anymore. Yeah. They seem to be very much more in touch with their feelings and very much more able to recognize their own anxieties and things like that. And I think, honestly, that's going to help them out tremendously. Because my generation, it took years and years of denial, and then all at once, all of a sudden, everybody kind of realized that they should be in therapy. These kids coming up now, they're already in therapy. They got a leg up on everybody else.
Right, right. Exactly. Now,
Therapy's healthy.
therapy
It's okay.
therapy is. I had to go through some therapy a few years ago after the loss of my mother-in-law and after I lost my son. I had to go
God.
through. Yeah, it was bad. 2016. It was a bad year with everything that went on with my family. With January 1st, 2016. Me and my wife lost her mother. I lost my mother-in-law, and we lost our son on the same day.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That.
How are you not still in therapy?
I pushed through it. I pushed through it, man. Me and my wife embraced each other, and instead of having it driving us apart, it brought us closer. And with it bringing us closer, we did go to therapy there for a while, and it did help out. It did help out talking to someone about everything going through and stuff, like how losing loved ones like that. It was just, it was bad. I mean, when I mention it to anyone, they say, "How the hell are you still, functioning and going through that?" I said,
"Yeah,
I don't know. We just take one day at a time." I did hit the alcohol really hard there for a while after I lost my son and mother-in-law. I felt like I hit rock bottom. I just drank and drank and drank, and I finally woke up one morning and I'm like, I don't want to be drunk no more. I want to live. I want to live. Then I went and got helped, and me and my wife got counseling to help us get through it, and everything worked out. I mean, for a long time I didn't even want to talk about the death of my son. I didn't want to talk about the death of my mother-in-law because it hurt me so bad. Eventually, after all these years, it's taken, this is 2020, 2016. I'm starting to now mention it and talk a little bit more about it with people and say, yeah, I had a son, I lost a son, but I have a beautiful 3-year-old daughter now and a loving wife, and it's like, well, how do you get past something like that? Go get help, talk to someone, and take one day at a time. That's all you do. That's all you do. That's all you can do. And it's helped. It's definitely helped. But
you did the right thing too. Like for some people, the reaching out and being like, "Hey, I can't handle this. This is too much." Some people really can't do that.
Yeah.
They would rather be with the pain that they've gotten used to. Not that it's comfortable, but they know it.
Yeah.
And they would rather stay in that pain that they're familiar with than to reach out and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I don't want to be in this place anymore. I want to be somewhere new. I want to be somewhere new where I don't feel like crap all the time. Like that's an incredibly hard thing for a lot of people to do. So being like, hey, need to tag somebody else in here because I can't do this, but I need a team now. It can't just be me right now. Me is not enough right now. That's incredibly hard for people to be able to admit. So that's fucking amazing.
Yeah. It's taken years though, but I definitely and
it does though. It takes there's some stuff that I'm like, I'm just okay talking about now, and it happened like 10 years ago. Like there's no set amount of time that has to pass for every individual before it's okay. You never know how long it's going to take, but it's so much more important to actually be doing something about it than just thinking about, oh, I should, I really should drink less. I really should go talk to somebody. Like that's the hardest. I feel like it's not that it's not hard after that, but doing that first step, that feels like it's the hardest thing you're ever going to do in your life.
yeah, it's taking that first step right there, and actually, yeah, just taking that first step and saying, yeah, I don't want to do this no more, and then you just, you make that change, and I had to make that change, and I made that change, and just. That was a rough time. That right there at that time there, I didn't know if I wanted to do any podcasting anymore. I was just said to myself, I don't even know if I want to do this. I don't even know, because I was at that point. I'm like, I just want to just not do anything, nothing. And then I rebranded and recreated myself, and I've been going with it since 2016. Because I've been doing podcasts since 2014, but in 2016, that's when I changed everything around for like the third time, and I've run with it since then. I was like, I need some kind of thing to shake up and change with everything that I do. And so that's when my alter ego was created. And I've been running with it since then, and I've had good and bad with it, though, but that's how it goes. But speaking of commentary and speaking of events and everything that's going on with what you're doing, you have some events coming up here, don't you?
Yeah, I think the main thing that's happening is WSU's anniversary show on March 15th. So it's going to be like a Sunday matinee kind of show, which is cool. I like a Sunday show. I like an afternoon show, to be honest, because I'm so, you're used to being like, oh, it's night, my Saturday night, it's going to be a wrestling show and that's it. But it's like doing it during the daytime, then it's like, I get to watch a really awesome show, and then I get to go out and have like dinner afterwards, or I get to go out and like have a drink afterwards. Like I'm kind of a fan of it. But that's the I want to say like the 13th anniversary of WSU. Like, been around for a minute in various iterations. WSU's had its own eras, not maybe as famous as the Attitude Era, but it's gone through some phases for sure. And that's going to be really exciting. I'm super pumped about that show. It's going to be great. I always have a fantastic time at WSU. I always tell, anytime I talk to anybody that's not into wrestling, or they don't get it, or they claim that it's like weird or stupid or dumb or whatever, I'm like, okay, but go to a live wrestling show. And then for people who know about wrestling but have never been to a women's wrestling show, I'm like, okay, but go to a women's only show. Go, and go to any kind of wrestling that you come across that's not just like a straight up bro kind of wrestling organization. Like, anybody that's doing something different and interesting, like, you owe it to yourself as a fan of wrestling to kind of check it out. Because, oh my God, my home device is talking to me. There's so much wrestling out there, and so it's going in so many different amazing directions. There's forms of wrestling out there that, like, if you've never seen it live, how do you know if you like it or not? So right. I think women's wrestling is different in a good way, not in like a it's better than. It's kind of it's its own thing, and I think it's pretty rad. So that's going to be in Voorhees at the Colossal Sports Academy, which is a big, crazy building. And they're going to rock it. I'm really excited about it. I'm like really super jazzed about it. It's going to be great. Titles are on the line. Spirit Championship is on the line. World Championship is on the line. Tasha Steeles was there at the last show. She's coming back, which I'm really excited about, going up against Brittany Blake, who's the champion. Davian, I believe, is the current Spirit champion at WSU. Her title is also on the line. She's always amazing. So yeah, there's other shows, but I'm not allowed to say other shows yet. But
Okay.
they will be revealed in the coming weeks. So
okay, that's fine. That's fine. Just we'll have to check out your social media right there. But I have it up right here on your screen right here. The WSU proudly presents the 13th anniversary Sunday, March 15, 2020, at the Colossal Sports Academy at the Coliseum on 333 Preston Avenue in Voorhees, New Jersey. Bell time at 4 p.m. And the cool thing about this is I don't have to be up there because Daytona in New Jersey, that's kind of a long way. I can watch it on the Fight TV. I can watch it right on there. It's going to be streaming live on Fight TV, which is great. And I have that app.
Yay, Fight TV!
So I love it. I love it. I definitely do love it. And I want to give a shout out to Christopher Casey for following Podcast C Network on Twitch. I want to give a shout out to our new follower there on Podcast C Network, twitch.tv. Thank you so much for following. It just popped up on there. So I was like, yeah. Nice. So that's always cool to have a new follower. But I want to thank you for coming on, man. We talked about everything because the last time, again, when we talked on David's show off air, you said, yeah, I like to come on, we come on your podcast, just talk. I just like just talking about everything and anything. And I said, yeah, I'll keep that in mind. And that's what we did tonight. And I love it.
We did. We went unexpected places.
Yes, we did. I loved it. And before we do close out, I do want to ask, where can people find you on social media at?
I'm on the internet. I'm on Twitter at Risa Pappas. I'm on Facebook. I'm looking at the URL now because I said it forever ago and didn't remember it. I'm on Facebook.com/Risa Pappas, ring announcer, all one word. On Instagram at Risa Pappas. Don't follow me there unless you want to see 100,000 pictures of my cat. I can't help it. And I have a website, risapappas.com. I do a lot of work. My general side hustles are I do audiobooks for audible.com, and I also do just general copying and content editing. So anything that people write that they want a second set of eyes on, I actually do that on a contract basis. So if there are writers out there, if you've written your opus and you need a second opinion on it, risapappas.com is where you go.
Nice.
In addition to the ring announcing and the commentary, and if you're in the greater Philadelphia area and you would like a ring announcer and or commentator, you can also hit me up on all the places.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on here tonight. And before we do close out, I do want to mention that you can follow more Podcast C Network over on their website, podcastc.net. Your top source for independent podcasting. Follow them on Facebook, Podcast C Network, and send them a tweet over on Twitter at Podcast C Net for video podcast portions of video podcast of your favorite shows. Head over to YouTube for Podcast C Network and follow them right here on Twitch, Podcast City Network, when shows on the network go live. And then you can follow more Everett Lee over on Facebook, Everett Lee Show, and on Twitter at the Everett _Lee, Instagram, Everett Lee Show, and audio portions of this podcast and previously released podcast. Head over to YouTube, Everett Lee Show, Stitcher Radio. Download that app for your smartphone and tablet. Give a rating and a review. Much appreciated. And over on Podbeam, Everett Lee Show. .podbeam.com. Head over there and give a review and a rating. And on iTunes, subscribe there, give a rating and review as well for audio portions of the Everett Lee Show podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, that is it for the Everett Lee Show. Have a good night, and we'll see you again next week for another episode of the Everett Lee Show.